Chapter 3804. The exit of a nebula grotto was covered by the primordial chaos bell. Looking from afar, one could only see a gigantic, pitch-black divine bell pressing down on the ground. The four elders were ordered to leave by Shui Shang, but they did not go far, nor did they return to the Qiongqi clan's lair. They believed that Long Tian came with ill intentions and would definitely harm clan leader Shui Shang. Therefore, the four of them retreated 50,000 miles and stopped in the sky. They stood high in the sky and used their divine consciousness to observe the situation at the grotto's exit. Unfortunately, they could only see the gigantic divine bell and could not see what was going on inside. Worried, the four elders sent a message to their clansmen. Not long after, a large group of deacons and guards rushed over in a hurry. There were also 300 elites of the Hall of Blood Slaughter. They were armed with swords and full of killing intent. These elites of the Hall of Blood Slaughter did not listen to the four elders' message. They followed Shui Shang's order and went to check the situation at the exit. However, when they encountered the four elders, they were stopped by them. "Don't go. The clan leader has ordered that no one can interfere." The second elder stopped the elites of the Hall of Blood Slaughter and said to the leader of the Hall of Blood Slaughter. The leader of the Hall of Blood Slaughter frowned and used his divine consciousness to look at the divine bell at the exit. He asked worriedly, "Second elder, what's going on? Who is so daring as to attack our nebula paradise?" The third elder replied in a heavy tone, "It's Long Tian of the Myriad Demon Alliance." "What? Long Tian?" The leader of the Hall of Blood Slaughter was shocked and said anxiously, "Damn bastard. He actually led the Myriad Demon Alliance to attack our clan? What are we waiting for? Go help the clan leader." As he spoke, the leader of the Hall of Blood Slaughter was about to lead 300 elites to the exit to help. The other two elders quickly stopped him and explained, "Don't be so agitated. It's only Long Tian who came. He didn't bring any helpers. Also, the clan leader has strictly ordered that we are not allowed to interfere in this matter. He will deal with it alone." The second elder nodded in agreement and said earnestly, "The clan leader said that this is between him and Long Tian. No matter what happens, our clansmen are not allowed to interfere. Otherwise, this matter will become a grudge between our clan and the Myriad Demon Alliance and bring disaster to our clan." At this point, not only were the 300 elites of the Blood Slaughter Hall stunned, but the dozen deacons and more than 100 experts were also stunned. How can this be? What grudge is there between the clan leader and Long Tian? The Myriad Demon Alliance dared to attack the Xuanji Grotto and even won. It's obvious how powerful they are. Our clan is no match for them. But if that's the case, wouldn't the patriarch have to sacrifice himself to protect all the disciples of our clan? The hundreds of disciples of the Qiongqi tribe immediately understood Shui Shang's intention. Therefore, many people who were worried about Shui Shang's safety immediately began to clamor. How can we let the patriarch risk his life while we drag out an ignoble existence? We would rather die in battle than suffer such humiliation. My clansmen, as long as you still have courage, come with me. We will fight side by side with the clan leader. We will not yield to the enemy." Someone raised his arm and shouted. Immediately, the others responded and rushed to the primordial bell of chaos with more than 200 people. Even the commander of the Blood Slaughter Hall ignored Shui Shang's orders and rushed over with 300 elites of the Blood Slaughter Hall. The three elders wanted to stop the impulsive clansmen from ruining the clan leader's plan. However, the second elder waved his hand and stopped the three elders. The three elders were filled with anxiety and hurriedly asked him, "Second elder, what are you doing? The clan leader has ordered that no one is allowed to interfere in this matter. Why don't you stop them? They are so reckless. What if they ruin the clan leader's plan? What should we do?" Seeing that the three elders were so anxious, the second elder said earnestly, "Everyone, don't be anxious. How can I not think the same? However, as you can see, our clansmen are hot-blooded. They can't bear to see the clan leader sacrifice himself for the safety of our clan. We can't stop them. If we forcefully suppress them, I'm afraid we will be labeled as cowardly, cold-hearted, and cowardly. The three elders fell silent. They had to admit that the second elder was right. After a while, an elder asked, "What should we do now?" The second elder looked at the exit. His divine sense found that everyone was surrounding the divine bell. He sighed and said, "Now that things have come to this, we can only go and take a look." Thus, the four elders flew across the sky and rushed to the grotto heaven's exit. Soon, the four of them arrived near the divine bell. They saw hundreds of Cheongchi clan experts and Hall of Bloodslaughter elites surrounding the divine bell, observing and discussing. No one could see the situation inside the divine bell, but everyone's face was filled with worry. Everyone knew that Long Tian was an expert who could be compared to a peak divine king. Their clan leader was definitely not Long Tian's match. However, no matter how everyone worried, it was also useless. They could not help at all. Some people who were more impatient took out divine weapons and swords one after another, hacking and slashing wildly at the divine bell. In the end, everyone was tired until they were panting heavily. Divine weapons and swords all collapsed, but the divine bell did not budge an inch. For some time, everyone could only stare at each other, cursing loudly at the divine bell, but they were at a loss on what to do. Seeing the scene become rowdy, many clansmen surged with rage, their behavior somewhat out of control. The second elder hurriedly came forward to suppress it. "Everyone quiet down. Make sure not to have any rash and impulsive actions, so as to avoid spoiling the clan leader's grand plan. The clan leader and Long Tian are inside the divine bell. We can't see the situation inside and can't help either. Everyone being anxious is also useless. Rather than that, everyone might as well conserve energy and wait patiently for the result. You all have to believe in the clan leader's ability. Since he has the confidence, he can definitely resolve it smoothly." Following the second elder's voice spreading all around, many anxious and frenzied clansmen gradually calmed down. Through several elders' pacification and persuasion again, the scene finally recovered calm. Several hundred people surrounded the divine bell's surroundings, patiently waiting for the result. This was also something that could not be helped. After all, the struggle between pinnacle divine king powerhouses was not what these divine lords could intervene in. Time passed by silently. After 15 minutes, the divine bell suddenly shrunk 1,000,000,000 times and flew back in front of Ji Tianqing. The massive shadow that was like the canopy of the sky finally disappeared. The world within a radius of 30,000 miles appeared in front of everyone once more. But when everyone saw the scene inside clearly, they were stunned on the spot. It was only to see the area within a radius of 30,000 miles become scorched earth. The earth was covered with ravines and deep pits. There were still remnants of horrifying divine power undulations. Above the ruins, there was only a handsome and valiant youth in white robes. There was no trace of Xue Shang. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 3805. Ji Tianqing stood above the ruins, holding the burial of Heaven Sword in his hand, safe and sound. Xue Shang, on the other hand, had disappeared. Apparently, he had turned into ashes and completely died. This result was destined from the beginning. That year, before Ji Tianqing became a high-level God King, he could fight Xue Shang to a draw, or even slightly better. Now that he was an 8-stage God King, he could even defeat a peak God King. So, killing Xue Shang was naturally not a problem. When he killed Xue Shang, he did not even use his 2 trump cards, Absolute Shadows and Sword of Annihilation. The reason why it took 15 minutes was that the indestructible golden body was more difficult to deal with. If it were not for the indestructible golden body's defense being too strong, Ji Tianqing could kill Xue Shang within 10 moves. What was worth mentioning was that Ji Tianqing's method of killing Xue Shang mainly relied on soul attacks. It was very difficult for ordinary spells to break the defense of the indestructible golden body. Even if Ji Tianqing had already killed Xue Shang, the indestructible golden body was actually only damaged and not destroyed. Before putting away the primordial chaos bell, Ji Tianxing had already cleaned up the battlefield. Shueshang turned into ashes and merged into the ruins. His godhead fragments, interspatial ring, and indestructible golden body were all put into Ji Tianxing's interspatial ring. Ji Tianxing pondered that he would have to find time to repair the damaged, indestructible golden body in the future. It could also be used as a trump card. After all, it was a king-level divine artifact. 4 elders, 300 elites of the Blood Slaughter Hall, and hundreds of experts of the Qiongqi clan swept their eyes across the ruins of the battlefield and finally gathered on Ji Tianxing. There was no need for Ji Tianxing to say anything. Everyone already knew the result. Immediately, anger and sadness spread among the crowd, filling everyone's heart. Many people's eyes turned red with blood, and flames of anger burst out of their bodies, exuding blazing, killing intent. Some people clenched their weapons, and the divine power in their bodies crazily accumulated, ready to burst out a fatal blow at any time. The 300 elites of the Blood Slaughter Hall moved their feet and silently formed an encirclement around Ji Tianxing. Although there was no sound in the field, the atmosphere was particularly solemn and somber. Raging anger and killing intent were brewing, and was about to erupt. However, Ji Tianxing, who was in the eye of the storm, was not worried at all. In fact, he didn't even care about these hundreds of people. His expression was calm as he said, "There's no need to guess. Your clan leader, Shueshang, has already been killed by this king. Just now, he had ordered the elders to strictly forbid anyone from interfering in this matter. Furthermore, he had left a will that forbade the people of the Qiongqi tribe from avenging him or becoming enemies with the 10,000 Demon Alliance. This is Shueshang's order. Now that he is dead, you can choose to obey or disobey." Everyone was already filled with grief and indignation, and his words had undoubtedly added fuel to the fire, causing everyone to be even more furious. However, he didn't care at all and continued, "I believe you also understand why Shueshang did this. He wanted to sacrifice himself to protect the people of the Qiongqi tribe. Before he died, he even begged this king to spare the Qiongqi tribe. This was because he knew that it would be easy for this king and the 10,000 Demon Alliance to exterminate the Qiongqi tribe. However, this king did not agree to his request. Whether or not to destroy the Qiongqi tribe is up to this king. Of course, it also depends on your performance." Ji Tianxing's tone was very relaxed and indifferent. There wasn't a trace of guilt, anger, or overbearingness in his voice. It was as if he was describing an unrelated matter. After he finished speaking, he stood with his sword and didn't say anything else. Obviously, he had given the Qiongqi tribe the choice. It was up to them whether they would live or be destroyed. The leader of the Blood Slaughter Hall was the most loyal to Shueshang. When he heard Ji Tianxing's words, he could no longer suppress his anger and immediately roared, "Long Tian, the Qiongqi tribe will never forgive you. Others may be afraid of you and the 10,000 Demon Alliance, but I'm not afraid of you." With the leader of the Blood Slaughter Hall taking the lead, a few deacons and many other tribe members immediately responded. Many people were filled with righteous indignation and cursed furiously. "Long Tian, you bastard, not only did you kill our leader, but you're also showing off here. Do you really think the Qiongqi tribe is a coward? Even if we die here, we won't be humiliated by you. Brothers, let's attack together and fight it out with him." As the roars, and curses rang out, everyone's emotions and hot blood were ignited. Nearly 400 Kenshin soldiers waved their swords and roared as they charged toward Ji Tianxing, releasing an overwhelming number of swords and sabers. Immediately, the flames of war rose from the ruins, and killing intent soared to the sky. The 4 elders' faces changed immediately, and they anxiously shouted, wanting to stop the crowd. Of course, they knew that the rash actions of these 400 tribe members would lead to a disaster. However, it was too late for them to stop them. Those 400 people were on the verge of madness and did not listen to any advice. Ji Tianxing was about to be drowned by the sword and saber light that blotted out the sky. At this moment, the center of the battlefield, under the swords and sabers, suddenly released a dazzling golden sword light that soared into the sky like a blazing sun. Bang! 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 Hundreds of divine sword lights, carrying the mighty power of laws, bloomed in the sky like a blazing sun, illuminating the earth. The attacks of the 400 Cheonchi tribe members were like ice and snow, quickly melting and dissipating under the blazing sun. With an earth-shattering explosion, dozens of Blood Slaughter Hall elites disappeared on the spot, turning into a rain of blood and dust that fell to the ground. Hundreds of Cheonchi tribe members were also sent flying by the unparalleled power and crashed into the ruins. In the dazzling golden light, Ji Tianxing's figure reappeared, standing proudly high in the sky. His left palm struck out with a mountain-sized dragon-elephant image, and his right hand swung the sword, creating streaks of shooting stars that shot toward the fleeing Cheonchi tribe members. Bang! 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 Boom! Boom! The battlefield was in chaos. The 300 or so Cheonchi tribe members who were lucky enough to survive were thrown off their feet, their flesh and blood flying everywhere. Waves of screams and howls of despair rang out continuously, reverberating through the sky. In just a few seconds, nearly half of the Cheonchi tribe members were killed. The four elders witnessed all this with their own eyes, and they were so frightened that their faces turned pale and they trembled all over. Of course, it was not just shock, but more anger and fear. They knew that Long Tian was very powerful, comparable to a peak god king. However, they had never seen it with their own eyes, and they were not qualified to exchange blows with Long Tian. Now that they saw it with their own eyes, they knew that Long Tian was actually so powerful, let alone killing 400 Cheonchi tribe members. Even destroying the entire Nebula Grotto heaven with his own strength would not be a problem. At this moment, the four elders suddenly understood Xue Shang's good intentions. They originally had a slight impulse to attack Long Tian together, but now, that impulsive flame had been forcibly extinguished by them. They shouted, "Stop!" While begging Ji Tianxing for mercy, they tried to save the fleeing Cheonchi clansmen. Chapter 38:06. This battle erupted suddenly and ended quickly as well. After 10 breaths, the Cheonchi tribe stopped fighting. The remaining 100 or so clansmen were all heavily injured and gathered together to catch their breaths. Many of them were in a sorry state. Their robes were stained with blood, and their hair was disheveled. They glared at Ji Tianxing in the sky. Their eyes were filled with hatred and fear, but no one dared to attack. After all, Ji Tianxing had killed more than 200 experts in just a few breaths. Most of them were the elites of the Blood Slaughter Hall. The surviving Cheonchi tribe members knew that compared to Long Tian, they were like dust compared to a star. For Ji Tianxing, dealing with them was as easy as chopping vegetables. No matter how hot-blooded and fearless they were, there was no need for them to die for nothing. The four elders stood between them and Ji Tianxing. They kept bowing to Ji Tianxing and begging for mercy. Although they looked very humble, sorry, and humiliated, there was nothing they could do. This was the punishment for being impulsive. If they did not beg for mercy, Ji Tianxing would kill them all. The entire Nebula Cave would be destroyed. For the sake of the big picture and the continuation of the Cheonchi tribe, the four elders could only endure the humiliation and try their best to mediate and make peace. Ji Tianxing looked coldly at the four elders. After a long time, he put away the sword of burial of heaven and said, "Life or death is the choice of the Cheonchi tribe. With the Cheonchi tribe's fierce reputation, even if I kill all of you and destroy the Nebula Cave, it is only right. However, seeing that Xue Shang sacrificed himself to protect you, and that you know what's good for you, I will not send you to reunite with the Taotai tribe." Seeing that he finally put away the sword and promised not to kill the Cheonchi tribe, the four elders felt as if they had been pardoned. They quickly bowed and thanked him. However, this matter was not over yet. Ji Tianxing said, "But I know that the Cheonchi tribe has always been bloodthirsty and good at fighting. If I let you go so easily today, it will be a disaster. In the future, you will definitely become the enemy of the Demon Alliance. Therefore, in order to avoid future troubles, we have to make an agreement. The four elders looked at each other and understood that Ji Tianxing's words were reasonable, so they didn't object to it. In their minds, they were simply being forced to swear that they would not go against the 10,000 Demon Alliance in the future. With the 10,000 Demon Alliance's current power, the Qiongqi clan could not wait to hide. How would they dare to make trouble? Therefore, the four elders did not hesitate and immediately agreed. Long Tian, don't worry. Patriarch Xueshang left us a dying order. We will certainly obey it and not go against the 10,000 Demon Alliance. As long as you let the Qiongqi clan go, it doesn't matter even if we swear an oath. Long Tian, we can swear that we will not go against the 10,000 Demon Alliance, but you have to fulfill your promise and stop harassing us. Ji Tianxing glanced at them and said coldly, "It's not as simple as you think. Take me to your divine palace." The four elders were stunned for a moment. They were a little puzzled, not knowing what Ji Tianxing wanted to do. However, the Qiongqi clan was in a very passive situation now. Their survival was in Ji Tianxing's hands. The four elders had no right to refuse, nor did they have the courage to bargain. They could only obey. Therefore, they took Ji Tianxing and flew into the depths of the grotto heaven. The 100 Qiongqi clan members who were in a sorry state could only follow. Not long after, they returned to the Qiongqi clan's residence. This place was surrounded by mountains in all directions. The divine power of heaven and earth was very rich. Within a radius of 5,000 miles, there were ancient and solemn palaces built on each of the majestic mountains. There were more than 4,000 Qiongqi clan members living in more than 200 palaces and courtyards. In the center of this area, surrounded by many palaces, there was a blood-colored divine palace that was hundreds of feet tall that was the most eye-catching. That was Patriarch Xueshang's residence. It was also the core of the Qiongqi clan, where the records were kept, and where they discussed matters. When Ji Tianxing and the four elders flew above the divine palace, a large number of Qiongqi clan members had already gathered around. Not long ago, the news that an enemy had attacked the Nebula Grotto Heaven had spread in the clan. Thousands of Qiongqi clan members were alarmed. They gathered together and discussed worriedly. If it weren't for a few respected elders and 2 elders suppressing them, the Qiongqi clan members would have already charged toward the exit in a grandiose manner. At this moment, the 3,000 Qiongqi clan members were divided into more than a dozen groups. They were discussing and shouting noisily. When they saw Ji Tianxing and the 4 elders return, the Qiongqi clan members quieted down. They looked at Ji Tianxing with hostility, although they did not know what had happened. However, everyone was extremely wary and hostile towards this young man from the Dragon Clan. Soon, the 100 Qiongqi clan members who were in a sorry state returned to the vicinity of the Divine Palace. When the Qiongqi clan members saw their miserable state, they immediately exclaimed in shock. Many of them asked what had happened. The injured Qiongqi clan members all had expressions of grief and shame. They did not say a word. The heavy and strange atmosphere made the 3,000 Qiongqi clan members uneasy. The discussion in the crowd became louder. Everyone looked at Ji Tianxing with even more hostility. Their eyes were filled with hatred and hostility. Many of the bolder Qiongqi clan members questioned the 4 elders loudly about what had happened. The 4 elders were hesitant. Their expressions were ugly. They secretly discussed how to explain and appease the angry Qiongqi clan members. However, before they could come to a conclusion, Ji Tianxing ordered, "Go and call everyone over. Gather them at the square in front of the Divine Palace. If anyone dares to not come, kill them." The 4 elders' hearts shook. Their expressions were even uglier. However, they did not dare to refute and could only pass down the order. Under the orders of the elders and a dozen deacons, the 3,000 Qiongqi clan members unwillingly gathered at the square. The square in front of the Divine Palace was very big. It was at least 1,000 feet wide. There was no problem in accommodating the 4,000 Qiongqi clan members. The patience of the Qiongqi clan members was gradually running out. Their anger and killing intent were becoming more and more undisguised. They could explode at any moment. Many people were roaring and questioning loudly. However, the elders could not explain. Ji Tianxing was also silent and expressionless. Half an hour later, more than 1,000 Qiongqi race clansmen gathered from all directions. The second elder reported to Ji Tianxing, "There are 4,562 people in total. Almost all of our clansmen have gathered." Ji Tianxing turned to look at him and sneered. "Almost all? How many are missing?" The second elder was under great pressure. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead as he replied, "There are still 15 people who are missing." "Haha, missing." Ji Tianxing sneered and said, "Nebula Paradise has always been sealed. They cannot leave. Since we have not found them, then they must be hiding. However, no matter. This king will deal with them later." Chapter 3807. Of course, the second elder knew what Ji Tianxing meant by deal with. He was even clearer that the 6 young experts who fled without permission only had the strength of Divine Lord Realm. To Long Tian, killing those 6 young experts was no different from killing a few ants. However, at this moment, the second elder was not in the mood to worry about those 6 people. He was more worried about what Long Tian wanted to do by gathering all the Qiongqi tribe members in the plaza. Before he could think further, he saw Long Tian emit a divine aura that could suppress the heavens and the earth. It enveloped the plaza. Swoosh! All of a sudden, the 4,000 or so Qiongqi clansmen all turned pale and lowered their heads in fear. All the roars, questions, and discussions came to an abrupt end. The plaza that had been noisy a moment ago was now so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Although many Qiongqi tribe members felt humiliated and angry, they could not raise their heads. Under the terrifying divine aura, they could not even raise their heads, let alone make a sound. Then, they heard Ji Tianxing say coldly, "Your tribe leader Xue Shang has been killed by me." Before he died, he left behind his last words. It was the same words as before. He had said it once at the entrance of the Grotto Heaven. Now, he said it again in front of all the Qiongqi tribe members. The outcome was the same. The 4,000 Qiongqi tribe members felt like they had been struck by lightning. When they heard that Xue Shang had been killed, they were filled with grief and anger. Their eyes were filled with hatred and resentment. If looks could kill, Ji Tianxing would have been cut into pieces. However, he was not afraid at all. He ignored the murderous looks and said indifferently, "To avoid future trouble, all of you have to swear an oath now. Of course, the choice is in your hands whether or not you want to swear an oath. You can resist." As soon as he finished speaking, more than a dozen divine lords struggled to break free from the pressure and shouted angrily, "Long Tian, we are irreconcilable with you. You damn bastard, you killed our tribe leader. We want you to pay with your life. Everyone, don't be afraid. If we all work together, we can definitely kill him." The dozen or so experts were agitated and roared furiously. Ji Tianxing glanced at them indifferently, then raised his right hand and shot out a dozen golden beams. In the next moment, a series of muffled bangs could be heard. The dozen or so divine lord experts exploded in front of everyone, turning into a bloody mist. The sudden deaths and the thick stench of blood greatly irritated the 4,000 Qiongqi clansmen. Many people became even more furious. They roared like crazy and rushed to Ji Tianxing with resentful eyes. There were even many experts who roared and revealed their true forms, using their Qiongqi true forms to unleash their strongest power to attack Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing's expression didn't change. He didn't even lift his eyelids. He raised his hand again and shot out dozens of sword lights. Swish! Swish! A resplendent golden sword light tore through the air, and in the next instant, the dozens of Qiongqi experts exploded into a bloody mist. A full 46 Divine Lord Realm experts all burst forth with their strongest power under their rage. In the end, he was still unable to block a single attack from Ji Tianxing and was easily killed by him. Moreover, not even his corpse was left behind. Not even a speck of his remains remained. Such a shocking scene filled the 4,000 Qiongqi clansmen with fear. They were scared out of their wits. In an instant, the cursing and roaring on the square weakened a lot. Countless people's ferocious expressions and resentful eyes turned into deep fear. As Cheongchi clansmen, they were naturally bloodthirsty. However, this didn't mean that they were fearless and could ignore death. The bloody reality told them that Long Tian was unimaginably powerful and that they couldn't disobey him. Long Tian could kill them as easily as squashing an ant. Therefore, many Cheongchi clansmen suppressed their anger and stayed where they were, not daring to move. However, there were still more than 100 fearless ironheads who continued to roar and charge at Ji Tianxing. However, a few elders and a dozen deacons rushed over anxiously and chased them back to the square. Those who could be comforted were comforted. Those who couldn't be comforted could only be knocked out on the spot to calm them down. Of course, there were still more than 30 Cheongchi clansmen who charged out of the square fearlessly and charged at Ji Tianxing. However, their outcome was the same as the Cheongchi clansmen before. They were all killed by Ji Tianxing with a raise of his hand and turned into a bloody mist. After a brutal beating, the remaining 4,000 people finally became obedient. In the face of absolute strength, they could only accept their fate and suppress all their anger and humiliation. The elders and deacons took the opportunity to comfort the crowd and explain what happened. In short, the square was noisy for a while before it became quiet again. Ji Tianxing took out a few jade slips and handed them to the 4 elders. He instructed, "This is the model of the oath. Copy it and send it out. Everyone has to recite it." The 4 elders were a little confused and looked at each other. They were just swearing not to go against the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Did they need a model? However, they didn't dare to disobey Ji Tianxing. They quickly took the jade slips and copied the contents of the jade slips. When they saw the contents of the model oath, they were dumbfounded again. They finally understood why this oath needed a model. There were more than 20 rules and more than 500 words. Normal people couldn't remember them. The 4 elders were very efficient. They quickly made 18 copies of the model oath and handed them to the 18 deacons. Then, they and the 18 deacons stood in the sky and commanded the Cheongchi clansmen on the square to recite the oath one by one. The first batch of 22 Cheongchi clansmen who were forced to swear the oath had wonderful expressions when they received the jade slips and read the contents of the oath. The smart ones knew that this was a heavenly oath. It was very strict and detailed. There was nothing left out. If they really swore such an oath, they would never be able to do anything to the 10,000 Demon Alliance. They couldn't go against the 10,000 Demon Alliance openly, secretly, or even in a roundabout way. If they had any thoughts of going against the 10,000 Demon Alliance, they might even be punished by the heavens. This was too terrifying. However, Ji Tianxing was staring at them from the sky. No one dared to refuse the oath. Everyone knew the consequences of going against Ji Tianxing. Therefore, the 22 Cheongchi clansmen fell silent for a while. Then, they began to recite the oath with a tragic and humiliating mood. Soon, a scene that shocked the thousands of Cheongchi clansmen appeared. After the 22 people recited the oath, their bodies lit up with 5-color divine light and traces of Taoist rhymes. An invisible power of the heavens enveloped the square. Everyone was terrified and in awe. Chapter 38:08. The Tao runes and scenes of the 22 Cheongchi tribe members swearing could not be compared to the divine King War Whale. Even the fluctuations of the power of the heavenly Tao and the scene of the lingering Tao aura seemed much weaker and insignificant. Ji Tianxing guessed that the difference was related to their cultivation level. The heavenly Tao would definitely pay more attention to a peak expert like the divine King War Whale. The heavenly Tao was already giving them a lot of face by responding to the Cheongchi tribe members. If not for the fact that Ji Tianxing had given them a strict and formal oath, the Cheongchi tribe members would not have been able to elicit a response from the heavenly Tao. The scene of the first batch of Cheongchi tribe members swearing shocked more than 4,000 Cheongchi tribe members and made them even more respectful. Although the square was still quiet and dull, it was obvious that everyone's resistance was much lower. Next, the first batch of Cheongchi tribe members returned to their original positions. The second batch of Cheongchi tribe members flew into the sky and recited the heavenly Tao oath in the jade slip. Ji Tianxing stood in the sky above the square and looked at everything indifferently. As time passed, batch after batch of Cheongchi tribe members swore the heavenly Tao oath, triggering the five-color divine light and Tao runes. The heavenly Tao power in the sky above the square became denser and denser, making the Cheongchi tribe members more and more respectful. The heavenly Tao today was a little busy. Overall, the collective swearing of the Cheongchi tribe members went smoothly. Most of the Cheongchi tribe members were intimidated by Ji Tianxing's power and could only swear obediently. However, there were still a few Cheongchi tribe members who stubbornly refused to swear. These people were either too young and hot-blooded or too old. The respected elders in the tribe could not bring themselves to do it. In any case, Ji Tianxing did not waste any time and killed them instantly. After this small interlude, the rest of the matter went even more smoothly. Even so, it took 6 hours for all 4,000 Cheongchi clan members to finish swearing their oaths. Ji Tianxing monitored the entire process to ensure that no one was left out. Only after the 18 deacons and 4 elders had sworn their oaths did he turn around and leave. The remaining matters were naturally left to the elders and wardens. The resentment of thousands of clansmen was too great. They still needed to explain and comfort them. Ji Tianxing did not leave the Nebula Cave. Instead, he searched the cave once more. The 6 Cheongchi clan experts who had fled in advance and were hiding in various places were also found and killed by him. After dealing with these matters, he left the Nebula Paradise. After the Nebula Grotto suffered such a calamity, it would definitely be turbulent for a few days before it could calm down. At the same time, the Cheongchi clan lost their clan leader and a large number of elites. They would not be able to recover for the next 1,000 years. Bound by the oath, even if the Qiankis grew stronger in another tens of thousands of years, they would not be able to harm the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Of course, the Cheongchi clan was an ancient sinful clan. It was hard to say if they could survive for tens of thousands of years. No matter how powerful the Myriad Demon Alliance was right now, it was still unknown whether it would still exist after tens of thousands of years. At the very least, the Qiankis would not be able to cause any trouble or threaten the 10,000 Demon Alliance in the next few thousand years. Meanwhile, in the southernmost part of the Star Source continent, on an island near the boundless sky sea, swoosh, 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 more than a dozen dazzling divine lights descended from the sky and landed on the strange rocky island. After the divine lights faded, 18 different-looking divine beings of different races appeared. These 18 powerful divine spirits with unfathomable auras were all divine king realm experts. However, they were not of the demon race. They were of a different race that did not exist in the dragon realm. There was a divine being with blue skin and antennae on top of his head. There was a divine being with a lithe body and a beautiful and noble appearance like that of a fairy. There was also a divine being with the upper body of a human and the lower body of a white Pegasus. There's also a strange divine being with a body that was like a ball of black smoke that was constantly changing. All in all, the 18 God King experts could be divided into 7 different races. The 18 God Kings gathered together, looked at each other, and exchanged a few words through voice transmission. Then, they all flew toward the pile of rocks in the middle of the island. On the surface, this island looked barren. Even the sea beasts and flying birds were not willing to stay here. However, in reality, they had already built a stone cave in the center of the island a month ago and made it look like a palace. And the hidden entrance to the palace was in the pile of rocks. The 18 God Kings came to the pile of rocks. Someone used a divine technique and opened the array at the entrance. Soon, a white spatial door appeared. The 18 God Kings entered in a single file. After a while, they appeared in the center of the island, 3,000 meters underground. The group passed through a man-made tunnel and entered a brightly lit stone cave. Although the stone cave was dug at the last minute, it was decorated magnificently and shone with divine light. The widest stone cave in the center was the main hall where they discussed matters with their master. On the walls on both sides of the main hall, there were more than 20 stone caves. Those were the secret rooms that the group needed to cultivate. When the 18 foreign god kings stepped into the hall, there were already 7 even more powerful god kings waiting for them in the discussion hall. Among them, the strongest was a middle-aged man wearing a golden robe and a luxurious divine crown. That person was tall and sturdy. He had a dignified appearance and a golden horn on his forehead. His entire body emitted the aura of a peak expert. Obviously, he was a peak god king from the dragon race. If there were any experts from the Star Source continent here, they would definitely recognize that this person was the ruler of the continent, the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. The Gold Source Dragon Emperor sat on a throne inlaid with divine gold and jade. The other 6 god kings stood below the steps in front of the throne. These 6 god kings were even stronger. All of them were high-level god kings. There was even an old man wearing a purple robe with 2 antlers on his head. He was at the 9th level of the god king realm. These god kings came from different races and were all arrogant and unruly. However, they bowed down to the Gold Source Dragon Emperor and were extremely respectful. "Greetings, Dragon Emperor." The 18 god kings stepped into the main hall. They lined up in a row and bowed in unison. The Gold Source Dragon Emperor was expressionless. However, deep in his eyes, there was worry and anger. He nodded slightly and said, "Everyone, please dispense with the formalities. Let's talk about the results of this trip." Thus, 6 of the 18 foreign race god kings walked out and reported the news one by one. Reporting to the Dragon Emperor. "We went to the Amlin region to investigate for a few days and found that the Black Heaven sect had been destroyed. Everyone was killed." Reporting to the Dragon Emperor. "Our investigation in the 7 Stops region also yielded the same results. The Chi clan was destroyed half a year ago. Those who were lucky enough to survive have fled the Star Source continent." Reporting to the Dragon Emperor. After the 6 god kings finished reporting, the Gold Source Dragon Emperor frowned deeply. His expression became even more gloomy. "These 6 factions were all my trusted subordinates back in the day. They were the ones I nurtured with great care. Previously, I didn't understand why they didn't respond when I sent them a message after returning. I didn't expect my guess to be right. That damn Myriad Demon Alliance. We should have destroyed them long ago." Chapter 3809. There was no doubt that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor had returned to the Dragon Realm a month ago. However, he did not descend on the Star Source continent, as the people had expected. Instead, he raised his arms and shouted for revenge against the Myriad Demon Alliance. Tens of thousands of people responded, and countless experts followed him. That was only a fantasy. It would not happen in reality. Even though he was the overlord of the continent, his prestige had been deeply rooted in the people's hearts for more than 20,000 years. However, the situation had changed. The winds in the Star Source continent had changed as well. Long before the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's return, the Myriad Demon Alliance had secretly made many arrangements to change the people's hearts and public opinion. They had also gotten rid of many of the mystical Grotto Heaven's hidden tricks. Of course, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor was not a reckless person. When his main body was still in outer space, he had already received news that the mystical Grotto Heaven had been conquered. Therefore, when he rushed back to the Dragon Realm to seek revenge, he had brought back a large group of experts with him. The 24 foreign race godly kings in the main hall were all his trusted subordinates that he had recruited and subdued in outer space. This was especially so for the purple-robed elder with a pair of deer horns on his head. He was the overlord of a certain star field and had been subdued by the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor through various means. Over the past 900 years, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor had built up a powerful force in outer space. It was not as simple as just sightseeing. Other than these 24 foreign race godly kings, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor also had a small world in his divine sword. There were thousands of elite, godly monarch experts in it. Even though he had such a powerful force, he did not reveal himself after returning to the Star Source continent. He hid on this barren island in the South Sea and first contacted the 6 forces that were most loyal to him. In the end, he waited bitterly for half a month, but there was no reply from the 6 forces. The 18 foreign race godly kings he sent out had gathered a lot of information on the Star Source continent. Most of it was related to the mystical Grotto Heaven and the Myriad Demon Alliance. Through the thousands of pieces of information, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor summarized them and learned about the details of what had happened. At the same time, he also guessed the Myriad Demon Alliance's backup plan. Therefore, he was even more determined to not reveal himself for revenge unless he gathered enough loyal subordinates and a strong enough force. Since there was no reply from the 6 forces, he could only send 18 foreign god kings to the 6 forces personally to investigate and find out the truth. Unfortunately, these 18 godly kings were not familiar with the Star Source continent, so it was inconvenient for them to act. After half a month, they finally completed their mission and returned to the island to report the results. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was in a terrible mood. His chest was filled with surging anger and killing intent that could explode at any moment. The atmosphere in the conference hall became extremely heavy and solemn. The 18 foreign race god kings stood there quietly, not daring to say anything. On the other hand, the 6 upper god kings all revealed expressions of anger, worry, and contemplation. They started to think of a solution for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. A moment later, a purple-robed old man with antlers stroked his brown beard and asked, "Dragon Emperor, you've ruled the Star Source continent for more than 20,000 years. The forces you've secretly cultivated shouldn't be just those 6, right?" The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor suppressed his anger. He didn't want his subordinates to see his furious side. That was because it meant that he was angry, but he was powerless to do anything about it. It would definitely disappoint his confidants. Of course not. Although the forces and experts under my command have been destroyed by the Myriad Demon Alliance. Even the 6 chess pieces that I buried have been eliminated by the Myriad Demon Alliance. However, I buried 12 chess pieces back then. There are 6 that are hidden even more deeply. All this while, the Star Source continent has been peaceful. Therefore, those chess pieces have not been used. The 6 chess pieces in the open have been removed, but the other 6 chess pieces in the dark should still be there. Hearing this, the deer-horned old man and the 5 upper god kings heaved a sigh of relief. Their brows relaxed. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor didn't say anything else. He rummaged through his interspatial ring for a while before he found 6 unique jade slips of different colors. These 6 jade slips were simple in design and had complicated patterns. They were the communication jade slips that he used to communicate with the 6 hidden chess pieces. The 6 hidden chess pieces only recognized these jade slips. Outsiders didn't know their relationship with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor entered the messages into the 6 jade slips and sent them out one by one. After doing this, he quietly waited for the 6 hidden chess pieces to reply. The great hall fell into silence. Time passed by silently. After an hour, a purple ray of light descended from the sky. It flew into the great hall and landed in front of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor took the purple jade slip and used his divine sense to read the information inside. After reading the contents of the jade slip, his expression didn't change. However, a look of relief flashed across his eyes. He also heaved a sigh of relief. The 6 hidden chess pieces were his most loyal and hidden trump cards. If something happened to them, it would be a heavy blow to him. Fortunately, everything seemed to be normal. Not long after, another green ray of divine light flew into the great hall and landed in front of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. 4 jade slips of different colors flew back one after another. The truth was that the 6 hidden chess pieces had not been discovered by the Myriad Demon Alliance. Moreover, after the Myriad Demon Alliance had taken over the Xuanji Grotto Heaven, they were even more cautious and concealed themselves even more deeply. They had been hiding and conserving their strength, waiting for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor to return. Now, they had finally waited for him. Although the deer-horned elder and the 20 over supreme gods in the great hall didn't know the contents of the 6 jade slips, they were still calm. Seeing the golden origin dragon emperor's calm expression and relaxed eyebrows, they knew that it was a good thing. In this way, the golden origin dragon emperor would have more power and they would have a greater chance of helping him take back the Xuanji Grotto Heaven. Of course, there was another important reason. With the 6 hidden chess pieces following them, the tasks of running errands, delivering letters, and gathering information naturally wouldn't fall into the hands of these supreme gods. Among the 20 over supreme gods in the Great Hall, the weakest one was a 5th-level divine king. In the extraterritorial starry sky, they were all experts and overlords who controlled many worlds. They had experienced countless battles and battles. Now that they were in the dragon realm, they had to run errands and do odd jobs. It was a waste of their talents. Pack up and get rid of the traces. Let's go. The golden origin dragon emperor kept the 6 jade slips. He had already made up his mind. He stood up and gave the order. The 24 supreme gods had been waiting for this moment for a month. Naturally, they wouldn't hesitate at all. Everyone immediately spread out to pack up their belongings and get rid of the traces. After another 15 minutes, this temporary cave became worthless. No useful clues were left behind. The supreme gods returned to the Great Hall and gathered in front of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor led everyone away and flew to the sky above the island. Then he took out a king-grade high-level divine ship, which carried everyone to the north. Chapter 38:10. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's divine warship traveled through 6 regions in the south of the continent for several days. The divine warship was fast and stealthy. As such, the spies of the 10,000 Demon Alliance in the south of the continent did not discover this divine warship. 7 days later, the divine warship picked up 6 batches of elites and experts from the 6 regions. These 6 batches of people each had their own characteristics. Some were from prestigious clans, some were from hidden sects, and some were from the pugilistic world. In the eyes of the world, they each had their own backing and did not form a faction. It was impossible to connect them together. However, in reality, they were the 6 hidden chess pieces that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had planted back then. Each chess piece kept a low profile and did not reveal their strength. Even the forces that they presented to the world were only the tip of the iceberg. If they displayed their true strength, they would be stronger than the domain chief's manners of the various regions. Now, these 6 hidden chess pieces had responded to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's summons and gathered in the divine warship to carry out their mission. The 6 powers had a total of 2,000 middle god lords, 1,000 high god lords, 50 low god kings, 30 middle god kings, and 6 high god kings. After they entered the divine warship, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's forces more than doubled. It would not be a problem even if they were to fight the 10,000 Demon Alliance head-on. However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor did not intend to do so. He wanted to head to Sky Crane Mountain first and see what his foundation was like in the Xuanji Grotto Heaven. Previously, the foreign race god kings under his command had heard some news. It was said that the 10,000 Demon Alliance's soldiers had retreated to the 10,000 Demon City, leaving only Long Tian to guard the Xuanji Grotto Heaven. Everyone knew that Long Tian was waiting for him to fight to the death with him. When he heard this news, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor sneered disdainfully. Now he was going to head to the Xuanji Grotto Heaven to fulfill Long Tian's wish. He wanted to see exactly how arrogant this rising star of the younger generation that had only risen to prominence in recent years was to actually dare challenge him, an overlord of the ages. 10 days later, at the peak of Sky Crane Mountain, this 10,000 jong tall mountain was still in perfect condition. The mountain peak stood tall in the white sea of clouds, and the immortal energy was still faintly discernible. Even the huge stone statue on the mountain peak and the array patterns carved on the ground were not damaged at all. Right above the mountain peak, the huge bright moon was still hanging in the sky, slowly rotating. However, one could vaguely see that there were 9 crisscrossing shallow marks in the bright moon, flowing slowly like a river. Shwa! A divine ship flew over from the south and landed on the peak of Sky Crane Mountain. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, who was wearing a golden robe and a divine crown, was the first to step out of the divine ship and stand at the peak of Sky Crane Mountain. Then, the 12 upper god kings and the 48 middle god kings led by the deer-horned elder stepped out of the divine warship and stood behind the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Everyone followed the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's gaze and looked at the bright moon in the sky. With the eyesight of the 60 divine king powerhouses, they were naturally able to tell that that bright moon was rather strange. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor frowned and smiled coldly. He said, "As I expected, that little bastard really changed the array at the Grotto Heaven's entrance." The deer-horned elder stared at the bright moon for a while before he said calmly, "It's just a high king-grade divine array. Even if he put in some effort and stacked the array, it can only create some trouble for us. It can't stop the Dragon Emperor. If that's all he has, then I'm going to be disappointed." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor laughed coldly. He turned around to look at the 60 divine kings behind him and laughed self-mockingly. "It's just a deal with a junior who hasn't made a name for himself yet. How laughable." The deer-horned elder said calmly, "Even an eagle needs to use all its strength to catch a rabbit. That kid is naturally no match for the Dragon Emperor. However, we are only here to prevent him from playing any tricks." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor did not say anything else. He pointed at the bright moon and ordered, "Break that divine array within a day." The deer-horned elder cupped his hands and said, "Understood." Then he led the other divine kings into the sky and spread out around the bright moon. The deer-horned elder was in control of the situation. He observed the great 9 bands of Heaven River's array and thought of a way to break it. The 11 high-level god kings and 48 middle-level god kings also used their abilities to study the mysteries of the ceiling array. Everyone gathered their thoughts and communicated through voice transmissions. After 15 minutes of discussion, they decided on the direction and method to break the array. The deer-horned elder was still in charge of the situation. He commanded the 11 high-level god kings and 48 middle-level god kings. Under his arrangement, the divine kings lined up in a formation and cast their spells in an orderly and rhythmic manner. They began to work together to break the array. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor stood high in the sky and looked at everything with an indifferent expression. He was thinking about the next step of his plan. As time passed, the process of breaking the array was carried out in an orderly manner. The deer-horned elder was indeed a 9th heaven realm god king. His strength was a level higher than Wu Exian and the Battle Dragon King. Under his leadership, the dozens of divine kings worked together and slowly broke the 9 bends of the Heaven River array. Everyone could clearly sense that the 9 bends of the Heaven River array on the bright moon was gradually fading and its power was rapidly weakening. However, their speed of breaking the array was still too slow. It was basically impossible to complete it within a day. When it was late at night, more than half of the day's time limit had passed. However, they were only halfway through breaking the array. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was clearly unhappy, and he frowned. The deer-horned elder was good at reading people's expressions, and he immediately saw that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was unhappy. He hurriedly flew to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's side and apologized softly. He explained, "Your Majesty, please forgive us. Some of us are from outside the region, and some are from different forces. We are too unfamiliar with each other, and we don't have good teamwork. This is why the speed of breaking the array is so slow." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor glanced at him and sneered, "Stop making excuses. You are afraid that I will be angry, and that is why you don't dare to tell the truth. The truth is that Long Tian, that little bastard, has high attainments in the array Dao. Although the array he set up is only a king-grade high-grade divine array, it is not inferior to a supreme-grade divine array." This. The deer-horned elder smiled awkwardly and did not say anything else. "There was no other way. You have already told me the truth. How can I refute you?" The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor said in a low voice, "Do you think that I am such a stubborn and self-opinionated person who refuses to face reality? The deer-horned elder hurriedly shook his head. "Of course not. Your Majesty, you are broad-minded and far-sighted." The golden origin dragon emperor waved his hand and said expressionlessly, "There is no need to say anything else. I will personally break the array with you." The deer-horned elder naturally would not refuse. He hurriedly flew back into the sky with the golden origin dragon emperor and continued to break the array. With the addition of the golden origin dragon emperor, the efficiency of breaking the array was greatly increased and the speed was doubled. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 38:11. Finally, at the end of the day, the great formation of 9 bends of Heaven River was broken by the experts. The 9 faint traces of the Milky Way that wrapped around the bright moon had all dissipated. With a crack, a hole was torn open in the great formation of 9 bends of Heaven River. The hole expanded to a radius of 3 zhang. The deer-horned elder and the other god kings worked together to reinforce the hole, preventing it from closing. Then the gold source dragon emperor led the deer-horned elder and the other god kings through the hole and into the moon. Whoosh! With a flash of white light, the group was swallowed up. In the next instant, the group entered the Xuanji Grotto Heaven and followed the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. The Gold Source Dragon Emperor did not fly very quickly. As he flew through the sky, he scanned the surroundings with his divine sense to observe the situation in the Grotto Heaven. The millstone at the entrance had been destroyed long ago. Everything within a radius of tens of thousands of li had been reduced to ruins. There were still ravines and deep pits on the ground. Even though a year had passed, he could still sense the chaotic aura of divine power lingering in the ruins. In some of the pits and ruins, he could still see fragments of the Golden Dragon Guard's armor and weapons. Although the surroundings were empty and abnormally quiet, when the Gold Source Dragon Emperor saw the ruins and the marks on the ground, he could still imagine the tragic scene of the battle. His expression became colder and colder. His eyes also became colder and colder. Anger and killing intent burned in his chest. The deer-horned elder and the other god kings all felt the gold source dragon emperor's anger and killing intent. Their hearts also became heavy. The group flew through the sky and did not conceal their auras at all. They went straight into the depths of the Grotto Heaven. Along the way, all they saw was shattered earth and messy ruins. Those huge ravines and deep pits seemed to be telling the group how many people had participated in the battle and how tragic it had been. Even the deer-horned elder and the other god kings had not lived in the Xuanji Grotto Heaven before. They did not recognize the Golden Dragon Guards. However, they still felt heavy, depressed, and angry. As for the owner of the Xuanji Grotto Heaven, the Gold Source Dragon Emperor, he was even more angry. His eyes had turned red. Finally, after an hour, the group stopped above a ruin that was 100,000 li in radius. The ruins were exceptionally messy, and the residual divine power aura was exceptionally dense. The ground was full of deep pits, ravines, and yellow sand, indicating that this was the main battlefield of the Great Battle. The silent gold origin dragon emperor could no longer suppress the grief and anger in his heart. He roared to the sky, "Long Tian, Myriad Demon Alliance. This emperor will tear all of you to shreds and grind your bones to dust." His angry roar reverberated between heaven and earth, causing everyone's eardrums to hurt. However, everyone could empathize with the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's feelings. They could also guess that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's divine palace was once located in these ruins. As expected, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor pointed to the ruins and said to the god kings beside him, "There was once a mountain range here called the Golden Dragon Mountain Range. It is a super divine range that I have spent several years refining by gathering thousands of mountain ranges. It was majestic, holy, and domineering. Moreover, it was able to gather the divine power of the entire Grotto Heaven. It was one of the top cultivation holy lands in the world. On this Golden Dragon Mountain Range, the soldiers and craftsmen under my command spent hundreds of years building thousands of palaces, buildings, and mansions. This place had the most dazzling divine palace, the most hidden and sturdy secret rooms, the most elegant scenery, and the most beautiful buildings and gardens. Now, those bastards from the Myriad Demon Alliance have destroyed everything. The gold origin Dragon Emperor's tone was low, and his face was contorted in pain. Everyone could feel how angry and heartbroken he was, and how much he hated the Myriad Demon Alliance. The deer-horned elder nodded slightly and said solemnly, "Your Majesty, don't worry. Those traitors from the Myriad Demon Alliance will definitely be punished by the heavens for committing such a heinous act." Without a doubt, these words had elevated the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor to the heavens and labeled the Myriad Demon Alliance as traitors and traitors. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor calmed down a lot, but he still gritted his teeth and roared, "No, this emperor will grind their bones to dust before they are punished by the heavens." Another high-level god king hurriedly bowed and said, "We will definitely do our best to fulfill His Majesty's wish." The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor stopped venting his anger and waved his hand. He ordered, "Split into 6 teams and search the entire Xuanji Grotto. Find Long Tian." The deer-horned elder quickly made arrangements. He split the 59 high-level god kings into 6 teams and sent them to search in different directions. After the 6 teams left, the deer-horned elder stayed behind to accompany the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. There was no one else beside him except for his trusted aide, the deer-horned elder. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor sighed and said, "Although it is inevitable that one's home will be destroyed in the flames of war. However, that bastard Long Tian is still too vicious. He actually destroyed the divine palace that this emperor had painstakingly built. Even if this emperor destroys the Myriad Demon Alliance and takes back the Xuanji Grotto, it will take me hundreds of years to restore it to its former glory." The deer-horned elder bowed slightly and comforted, "Your Majesty, don't worry. When you regain control of the Star Source continent, countless skilled craftsmen will be willing to rebuild the divine palace for you. Moreover, the Myriad Demon Alliance only appeared after you ruled the continent for more than 20,000 years. After this incident, there will be no other force that dares to challenge your authority in the next 10,000 years. No matter how strong or arrogant a force is, the Myriad Demon Alliance's outcome is the best example." These words touched the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's heart. He indeed calmed down a lot. After that, the two of them talked about some miscellaneous matters and plans for the future. Unknowingly, a day passed just like that. The 6 teams that were searching for Ji Tianxing also returned to the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor and reported the results of their search. "Your Majesty, we were unable to find any traces of Long Tian. Your Majesty, we were unable to find anything in the areas we were in charge of. Your Majesty." The 6 teams were in charge of different areas. They searched the entire Xuanji Grotto within a day. Unfortunately, they all received the same results. They were unable to find Long Tian. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor immediately frowned and asked with a gloomy face, "Long Tian is not in Xuanji Grotto? Was the news you received earlier fake?" An upper-level god king quickly nodded and took the opportunity to flatter the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. "Your Majesty, you are right. Who is Long Tian? Why would he dare to wait here alone for your Majesty's return? In my opinion, he must have purposely released fake news to mislead the people. In reality, he has already left the Xuanji Grotto and hid in the Myriad Demon City." The deer-horned elder pondered for a moment and shook his head. The news might not be fake. Long Tian's strength is not ordinary. Even if he secretly left the Xuanji Grotto, no one would know. Temporarily left? The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor raised his eyebrows and sneered. "Then we will wait here for him to come back and die." Chapter 38:12. Hearing the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's words, the God Kings understood what he meant. He wanted to set up camp in the mystical grotto heaven, set up traps, and wait for Long Tianlai to walk into the trap. A few of the more quick-witted God Kings agreed with the Dragon Emperor's intentions and immediately arranged for their subordinates to build a temporary residence for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. However, the deer-horned elder shook his head and advised the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, "Your Majesty, This is not appropriate." The gazes of all the god kings gathered on the deer-horned old man. The golden origin dragon emperor looked at him and asked, "What's not appropriate?" The deer-horned elder stroked his brown beard and explained, "I can understand your feelings. Since you've returned home, you naturally don't want to leave. You even want to rebuild your home. However, there's nothing left here. There's no value in staying here. Moreover, the Myriad Demon Alliance has yet to be eliminated. If we stay here, we'll be in a passive position. Our advantage is that we can move in the dark. We can advance and retreat as we wish. If we stay here, we'll be in the open, and the Myriad Demon Alliance will have the initiative." Hearing this, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor frowned and pondered. He was weighing the pros and cons. Many god kings felt that it made sense and nodded in agreement. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was indeed nostalgic. He missed the scenery of the Divine Palace and wanted to stay. Now that he heard the deer-horned elder's advice, he felt that it made sense and gave up on the idea. "All right, we'll do as you say. We'll leave the mystical grotto heaven and continue to move in the dark." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor nodded in agreement. He said in a dignified tone, "Compared to rebuilding our home, eliminating the Myriad Demon Alliance is more important. Next, I'll continue to contact the forces loyal to me and expand my forces. At the same time, you have to gather information and pay close attention to the Myriad Demon Alliance's movements. After we kill our way into the Myriad Demon City and destroy the Myriad Demon Alliance, I'll reveal my identity and announce the result to millions of people." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor already had a plan for what to do next. Many god kings felt that it was feasible and praised the Dragon Emperor for his wisdom. Northwest of the Astral Source Continent, within the Azure Snow region, the Sword of Burial of Heaven was like a streak of black light as it sped through the sky, heading straight for the Demon City. When Ji Tianxing left the Nebula Cave, he wanted to return to the Xuanji Cave to continue his seclusion and wait for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor to return. However, in the process of his journey, he suddenly felt a sense of vigilance in his heart, and a connection with the great formation of the 9 bends of the Heaven River was formed. Through the formation he had left in the Great Formation, he could clearly sense that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had returned. Moreover, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had brought dozens of god kings with him to break the great formation of the 9 bends of the Heaven River. Ji Tianxing was unable to find out where the dozens of god king experts came from, what their identities were, and what their strengths were. However, he was very sure that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had already returned to the Star Source continent. However, there was no news of his return. From this, one could see how shrewd and patient he was. Since that was the case, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor must have come prepared. He must have gathered enough forces under his command to eliminate the Myriad Demon Alliance. When he thought of this, Ji Tianxing immediately changed his mind. He no longer headed to the Xuanji Cave, but turned around and rushed back to the Myriad Demon City. If he went to the Xuanji Cave alone, it would be no different from suicide. His top priority was to return to the Myriad Demon City as soon as possible. He had to make the necessary arrangements and prepare for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's counterattack. Therefore, on his way back to the Myriad Demon City, he had already sent a message to the Chief of Internal Affairs and the Left and Right Protectors to inform them of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's return. At the same time, he also asked about the Luoho Supreme Being's date of return. Previously, he had sent a message to the Chief of Internal Affairs and learned that the Luoho Supreme Being would be returning to the Dragon Realm very soon. Calculating the time, the Luoho Supreme Being should have returned to the Star Source continent by now. Before long, the Chief of Internal Affairs and the Left and Right Protectors had both sent a message back to Ji Tianxing. A year ago, the Myriad Demon Alliance had withdrawn their defenses and gathered their elite forces to set up defenses around the Myriad Demon City. They were just waiting for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's return. Therefore, the Myriad Demon Alliance did not panic when they heard the news of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's return. Everything went according to plan. They changed their lines of defense and strengthened their defenses in an orderly manner. The Myriad Demon City's calm response comforted Ji Tianxing slightly. However, the Chief of Internal Affairs' reply made him frown. He was both puzzled and worried. The Chief of Internal Affairs told him that Alliance leader Luoho had indeed returned to the Dragon Realm. However, he had not returned to the Myriad Demon City. In fact, they had lost contact with Alliance leader Luoho over the past few days. They did not know what had happened. This news made Ji Tianxing's heartbeat faster. He was even more worried and anxious. He even hastened his steps back to the Myriad Demon City. The Luoho Supreme Being had not returned yet. He had to rush back to the Myriad Demon City as soon as possible and personally take charge. Only then would the Thousand Demon City be able to withstand the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's attack. There were also 5 continents in the endless sky ocean of the Dragon Realm. If the entire Dragon Realm's terrain was displayed on a map, one would see that the Star Source continent was located in the center. The other 4 continents were located in the southeast, northeast, southwest, and northwest directions of the Star Source continent. The 5 continents were not connected. They were separated by the vast and mysterious endless sky ocean. Unless one was a god king, it would be difficult to cross it. In the northwest direction of the Star Source continent, on the other side of the endless sky ocean, there was an equally vast and rich continent called the Black Dragon continent. This was the origin and homeland of the Black Dragon race. Since ancient times, this continent had been controlled by the Black Dragon Emperor. Until now, the Black Dragon continent had experienced many upheavals in the past 20,000 years. However, the position of the Overlord was still as stable as Mount Tai. The overlords of other continents had always been mysterious and low-key. They often did not appear for hundreds or thousands of years. However, the Black Dragon continent was different. The Black Dragon Emperor was an anomaly. He rarely cultivated in seclusion for hundreds or thousands of years. Almost every 100 years, he would appear in front of the world. He would often do things that did not suit his status as an overlord, causing the common people to gossip. For example, he would disguise himself as a noble young master and travel the continent, killing the rich to help the poor and redressing grievances for the common people. Another example was that he would bring along 3 to 5 trusted subordinates to disguise themselves and travel incognito. He would show off his affection everywhere among the common people and put on a touching marriage drama. This hobby caused his harem to be filled with wives and concubines. He had so many children that he could form a team of 1,000 people. Also, he would often disguise himself as a virtuous old immortal and go to the common people to give pointers to those talented but poor children of humble backgrounds. In short, the Black Dragon Emperor would try anything that was interesting. He did not care about his status as an overlord. The entire Black Dragon continent was filled with his figure and legendary deeds. He was so active that he was like a fake Dragon Emperor. Chapter 38:13. The Black Dragon Emperor's abode was located in the famous Starry Sky Grotto. This beautiful and resource-rich grotto was located in the east of the Black Dragon continent. The Starry Sky Cave, which had a circumference of 1,000,000 miles, was like a giant, transparent crystal ball attached to the space barrier of the Dragon World. Inside the Starry Sky Grotto, there was a sea of white clouds and the blue sky of the Dragon Realm. Above his head was the dark starry sky of the Outer Realm. There were also billions of specks of starlight and countless silver galaxies. Such a special environment was similar to the star-devouring grotto of the Taotai clan. However, this Starry Sky Grotto was much larger, had much more beautiful scenery, and was dozens of times richer in resources. The star-devouring grotto was full of deserts and wastelands, mixed with a large number of barren mountains, which hid star veins. However, the Starry Sky Grotto was not like that. There were green mountains and clear waters, thousands of trees and flowers. The incomparably rich power of the stars had nourished this grotto heaven since ancient times, causing many of the mountain ranges to turn into silver mountains of stars. The divine power was so abundant that it could make one's hair stand on end. It would condense into divine liquid and rain from time to time. The rain formed by the divine liquid would flow in the grotto and eventually converge into colorful rivers and lakes. It was no exaggeration to say that the Starry Sky Grotto was full of treasures. A few stones dug out from the mountains would be priceless gems and divine jades in the Dragon Realm. In the entire Black Dragon continent, there was no other grotto that could be compared to the Starry Sky Grotto. Even among the hundreds of grotto heavens in the Dragon Realm, the Starry Sky Grotto's beauty and resources were one of the best. This was also one of the things that the Black Dragon Emperor was proud of. At this moment, in the depths of the Starry Sky Grotto, in a sacred and glorious gilded palace, hundreds of Black Dragon clan guards in golden armor were firmly guarding the surroundings of a certain palace. In the spacious and luxurious palace hall, the atmosphere was tranquil and peaceful. There were only two people in the hall, sitting on opposite sides of a jade table. On the jade table were 9 kinds of rare divine fruits, a pot of top-grade divine soul jade tea, and a simple bronze incense burner, emitting refreshing green smoke. Sitting on the south side of the jade table was a tall and skinny black-robed old man. He had a head of long violet-black hair, a gloomy and icy-cold aura, and his eyes were violet in color. Upon closer inspection, there were actually 9 layers of pupils that overlapped with each other, causing him to seem extremely mysterious and strange. If the elders of the Myriad Demon Alliance were here, they would definitely recognize that this purple-eyed old man was their Alliance Master Luo Ho. At this moment, the elders and protectors of the Myriad Demon Alliance were filled with anxiety. They had lost track of their leader. However, no one would have thought that their Lord Alliance Master would actually be drinking tea in the Starry Sky Cave of the Black Dragon continent. Seated across from God King Rahu was a middle-aged man dressed in a red robe. He didn't sit upright like God King Rahu. Instead, he reclined in an unrestrained manner. He propped himself up with one hand while sipping tea from his cup with the other. The red robe was also not neat at all. It was crooked and covered his body, and the collar was even pulled. Even his black hair was disheveled, covering the dragon horns on his forehead. He didn't have a bun or a jade crown on his head. Instead, he simply tied his hair into a ponytail, making him look extremely slovenly. To put it in a more refined way, this was called carefree, unrestrained, and frivolous. In particular, under the messy bangs, was a handsome face that was somewhat devilishly handsome, which added a bit of persuasiveness to him. This handsome, carefree, and unrestrained middle-aged man from the dragon race was the overlord of the Black Dragon continent, the Black Dragon Emperor who didn't do proper business. This trait of not doing proper business was vividly displayed at this moment. Ophidian, you've been busy for a few hundred years, but you still haven't found your old man's corpse? The Black Dragon Emperor picked up a divine fruit and threw it into his mouth. He chewed it a few times and looked at God King Rahu from the corner of his eyes as he asked in a muffled voice. God King Rahu shook his head gloomily. The Black Dragon Emperor smacked his lips and revealed a look of pity. He frowned and said, "Then you have to work harder and find his corpse as soon as possible. When the time comes, I'll have to ask him face to face what he comprehended before he died. How could he disappear without a sound? It's fine if he took things too hard, but he only told me half of the story back then. He suddenly did this to me, causing me to be conflicted for over 1,000 years. Even now, I still can't figure out the answer. This won't do. That stinky old man is too disloyal." God King Rahu was speechless and could only reveal a bitter smile. He was very respectful of his old master. The reason he was searching for his old master's corpse was to fulfill his only wish and obsession. However, when these words came out of the Black Dragon Emperor's mouth, they sounded so casual that it made one feel uncomfortable. Fortunately, God King Ra knew the Black Dragon Emperor's temper and his relationship with his old master. If it were anyone else who dared to tease him like this, God King Rahu would have already wrung their neck. The two were silent. Only the crunching sound of the Black Dragon Emperor chewing on the dried fruit could be heard in the hall. After a while, God King Rahu took the initiative to speak. "I came back this time because I have something important to take care of." "Oh." The Black Dragon Emperor raised his eyebrows and looked at him from the corner of his eyes. He asked, "Tell me, what is more important than finding my old man's corpse?" God King Rahu said seriously, "The young master has returned." Ah! The Black Dragon Emperor was stunned. A trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. Then he quickly finished the dried fruit in his mouth and swallowed it. He asked, "You mean that brat Long Tion? He's still alive?" God King Rahu frowned and explained, "The young master has been training in the god realm for more than 1,000 years. He returned to the dragon realm a year and a half ago. Firstly, he wanted to visit his old master. Secondly, he wanted to find his son." The Black Dragon Emperor's eyes widened. His expression became more and more interesting. "Not only is that brat not dead, he even has a son? Cough. All these years, I always thought that the reason your old man took things too hard was because that brat Long Tion died." God King Rahu ignored his words and continued, "I created a faction in the Star Source continent called the Myriad Demon Alliance. After the young master and I met, I brought him back to the Myriad Demon Alliance. However, he became enemies with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, and our alliance threatened the Mysterious Paradise's position. As a result, our alliance clashed with the Mysterious Paradise. I died in battle with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's clone. In a fit of anger, the young master destroyed the Mysterious Paradise while the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's main body was away. He wanted to take the position of Overlord." The Black Dragon Emperor's eyes widened again. He was shocked. "Ha! What a snakeskin. How strong is that brat? He just returned to the dragon realm and did something big. He even destroyed the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's nest? He didn't seem like such a hot-tempered person when he was young." God King Rahu frowned again and ignored the word snakeskin. He knew that this was the Black Dragon Emperor's catchphrase, so he didn't care. He continued, "The young master's strength is on par with mine." Chapter 38:14. Amazing. My little Long Tion is amazing. The Black Dragon Emperor's eyes shone with excitement as he clapped his hands. The Golden Dragon Emperor is the most unsociable. He's always been arrogant and thinks that he's the descendant of the dragon ancestor. He doesn't take us seriously. I've always disliked him, but I just couldn't find a suitable reason to deal with him. I didn't expect little Long Tion to be so amazing and help me vent my anger." God King Laho's expression didn't change as he continued, "The young master is already qualified to take over the old master's mantle. However, the position of Overlord of the Heavenly Dragon Continent has already been given to Dragon Emperor North Sea. Therefore, I agreed to the young master's attack on the Xuanji Grotto Heaven to take over the position of Overlord. However, we have an irreconcilable enmity with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Now that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor should be back for revenge, I'm worried about the young master's safety." The Black Dragon Emperor frowned and asked with a faint smile, "Neither you nor Long Tion is a match for the Golden Dragon Emperor. However, if the two of you work together, it shouldn't be a problem, right? You came here today to ask me to help you destroy the Golden Dragon Emperor?" God King Luoho didn't deny it. He only said solemnly, "The young master's future achievements won't be inferior to the old master's. However, he's too young and weak. It's too dangerous for him to face the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor now." Before he could finish, the Black Dragon Emperor waved his hand and interrupted him. Furthermore, the Black Dragon Emperor stopped joking and said with a rare serious expression, "Ophiuchus, there are some things that you don't know, but your old man knows. Due to some unspeakable reasons, the 5 great dragon emperors can't kill each other. Believe me, we've all sworn heavenly oaths. It's impossible for me to help you kill the Golden Dragon Emperor. Long Tion can cause trouble, so you have to bear the consequences. I can't help you even if I want to." God King Luoho's eyes dimmed when he saw the Black Dragon Emperor's determined tone. However, he changed his mind and said, "You've misunderstood. I'm not asking you to kill the Golden Dragon Emperor. I'm asking you to protect the young master. The two of us will deal with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. However, I would like you to hold the fort. Be it in the open or in the dark, please protect the young master. This shouldn't cause you to break your oath, right?" The Black Dragon Emperor rubbed his chin and frowned as he thought for a moment. Then he smiled and nodded. "That's not a bad idea. You should have said that earlier. It just so happens that I've been bored for a few decades, and I'm bored of the Black Dragon continent. Let's go to the Star Source continent for a stroll." Only then did God King Rahu smile. He hurriedly rose to his feet and bowed to the Black Dragon Emperor. "Thank you for your help, Black Dragon Emperor. Young master, and I will remember this kindness." The Black Dragon Emperor waved his hand and said with a smile, "All right, there's no need to be so polite. That kid is to my liking, and I don't want to see him die young. Besides, for the sake of your old man, I will think of a way to help." God King Rahu's smile grew increasingly warm. He immediately bowed and took his leave. "Since that's the case, this old man will take his leave first. Are you coming with me, or—" The Black Dragon Emperor hurriedly replied, "You can go back first. I'll rush over soon. I have to think about how to give that kid a surprise." God King Rahu did not say anything else. He bowed and was about to leave. Seeing that he was about to reach the entrance of the hall, the Black Dragon Emperor suddenly thought of something. He asked, "Hey, Ophiuchus, I have one last question for you." God King Rahu stopped and turned to look at him. He nodded. "Please go ahead." The Black Dragon Emperor rubbed his chin and said with a playful smile, "Tell me honestly, is that kid Long Tian your old man's illegitimate son?" God King Rahu frowned. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Black Dragon Emperor, you asked this question many times 1,000 years ago. Besides, you asked the old master so many times. Didn't the old master answer you every time?" The Black Dragon Emperor looked like he was reminiscing. He continued to smile. "Although Old Sky Dragon denied it every time, I always felt that it was hard to believe. Isn't he too good to Long Tian? Also, he gave that kid the name Long Tian. Isn't that just a reverse of the two words? If they aren't father and son, who would believe it?" God King Rahu did not know whether to laugh or cry. He could only explain, "Black Dragon Emperor, don't make wild guesses. It really isn't like that." The Black Dragon Emperor still did not believe him. He pursed his lips and said, "Old Sky Dragon has been single his entire life. If an illegitimate son suddenly appeared, he would definitely not admit it. However, this is understandable. If this happened to me, I would also—" Before he could finish, God King Rahu said with a look of disdain, "You won't admit it either? Stop deceiving yourself and others. Your harem is full, and you have more than 1,000 children. What is there that you won't admit?" That's true." The Black Dragon Emperor had nothing to say. He could only nod in agreement. God King Rahu did not continue to talk nonsense with him. He waved his hand and turned to leave the hall. At the entrance of the hall, a middle-aged man with 3 legs and golden armor bowed to him and followed him out of the divine palace. The 3-legged man in golden armor was a 9th-level divine, King 3-legged Golden Crow. However, he was not from the Starry Sky Grotto. He was a follower of God King Rahu and had always been active in a star domain outside the realm. This time, God King Rahu had returned from the outer realm and brought this person back to the Dragon Realm. In the future, he would be able to deal with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and Shuanji Grotto. As for the 3-legged Golden Crow's origin, it was a long story with some twists and turns. In fact, this 3-legged Golden Crow had lived in the Dragon Realm since the end of the Ancient Era. At that time, he was an elder of the Golden Crow tribe. Because of the destruction of the Phoenix tribe, the Golden Crow tribe became a sinful tribe in Tianfa. They withered day by day and were in a difficult situation. In order to avoid calamity and disaster, this 3-legged Golden Crow fled the Dragon Realm and went to the Outer Realm to take root in a star domain. After more than 20,000 years of accumulation and development, this 3-legged Golden Crow had established a large force and had the power to control an entire star domain. Unfortunately, in the great battle for the position of Master of the Star Domain, he lost to an even stronger and more sinister opponent. From then on, the high and mighty Overlord became a wanted criminal in the entire star domain. His situation was extremely dangerous. Coincidentally, a few hundred years ago, God King Rahu had entered this star domain to investigate news of Dragon Emperor Fengtian. The two met by chance, and God King Rahu had saved him from danger several times. In the end, he had won his trust and respect. From then on, this 3-legged Golden Crow followed God King Rahu and secretly built up his force. Of course, God King Rahu did not build his force in the outer realm to seize the position of master of the star domain. He only wanted to make it easier to investigate news of Dragon Emperor Fontion and recruit more talents. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 38:15. God King Rahu brought the three-legged man and left the starry sky grotto heaven. In the spacious and bright hall, the Black Dragon Emperor was still leaning on the jade table, drinking tea and eating divine fruits. However, his frivolous smile and eyes had disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a calm and thoughtful expression. There was no one else in the hall, and there were even loyal guards standing guard outside. In here, he was not afraid of anyone eavesdropping. He was very relaxed and content. After pondering for a long while, he knitted his brows and murmured to himself, "Old Sky Dragon, you have always been the clearest and most transparent among the five of us, and also the most respected one. However, you actually left us with such a big question before you died. What were you thinking? What did you realize? Could it be the heavenly Tao gave you some instructions? Or did you see the answer? Why do you take things too hard and commit suicide? Isn't it good to live? You still have more than 60,000 years of life. That kid Long Tian is not bad, but I don't understand. Why did you think so highly of him? You can't blame us for suspecting that he is your illegitimate son. No one can understand what you are doing." The Black Dragon Emperor muttered to himself, and his frown deepened. After a long time, he seemed to have made up his mind, and his brows relaxed. "Fine, I will take advantage of Long Tian's return to observe and study him carefully. I want to see what is so special about him. I hope that I can find the answer to the mystery in my heart through him." The Black Dragon Emperor sighed and waved his hand to put away the jade table. He turned and left the hall. After a while, he returned to his bedroom and called for a maid to dress him up. According to the usual practice, he had to disguise himself before going to the Star Source continent. What identity should he disguise himself as? The sun set in the west, and night fell. The Thousand Demon City looked calm on the surface, but the atmosphere was solemn and the defense was tight. With the Thousand Demon City as the center, there were a total of 5 lines of defense within a radius of 1,000,000 miles, and hundreds of scouts were scattered around. The entire Darkwater region was under the control of the Thousand Demon Alliance. It was tense and on guard. The Thousand Demon Alliance's intelligence system was in full operation. Once a large group of God Kings entered the Darkwater region, the Thousand Demon Alliance would be the first to know. In the Demon City, inside the Alliance Master's divine palace, Ji Tianxing had already returned. He was sitting on a wooden armchair in the study, listening to the reports of the head of Internal Affairs and the Great Elder. 15 minutes ago, the Chief of Internal Affairs had reported on the defense of the Demon City, as well as the response plan in case of emergency. The Great Elder, Hu Xinyue, reported the peripheral situation of the Myriad Demon Alliance and the layout of the Star Source continent. After listening to their reports, Ji Tianxing nodded in satisfaction and said sincerely, "Over the past year, you've worked so hard to make so many arrangements and deployments that you didn't even have time to heal your wounds. Your contributions and hard work. This king will remember them all in his heart." The Chief of Internal Affairs and Hu Xinyue hurriedly bowed and said, "It's our duty to share young master's burdens. We don't dare to claim credit." Both sides exchanged a few pleasantries and asked each other about recent developments. Only then did the Chief of Internal Affairs and Hu Xinyue relax and chat with Ji Tianxing. Although the Alliance Master has yet to return, the young master rushed back and personally oversaw the Demon City. Now, the morale of the army has been stabilized. "Young master, this old servant still doesn't understand. We have basically dealt with all the pawns and forces under the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. This time, he secretly returned to the Star Source continent. He didn't release any news, and no one took the initiative to join him. How did dozens of God Kings gather around him? Where in the world did those divine king powerhouses pop out from?" Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a while. He said calmly, "Actually, this is all within my expectations. The Gold Source Dragon Emperor has operated in the Star Source continent for more than 20,000 years. How can he be defeated so easily? The forces and experts that our alliance eliminated should only be a portion of his pawns. There must be some pawns hidden very deeply that we haven't investigated. After pausing for a while, he added, also, the Gold Source Dragon Emperor has been in the Outer Realm for the past 1,000 years. He might be active in some star regions. With his strength and methods, it shouldn't be difficult for him to recruit a group of God King experts in the Outer Realm. The Chief of Internal Affairs and Hu Xinyue had never been to the Outer Realm. However, they had heard from Alliance Master Luo Ho that the 9 Great Star regions were extremely vast. There were at least 10,000 worlds of various sizes. Although no peak God Kings have been born in those worlds, the number of ordinary God Kings was more than the Dragon Realm. Both of them believed in Ji Tianxing's speculation. This means that the Gold Source Dragon Emperor brought back a group of God Kings from the Outer Realm. Since he brought people from the Outer Realm, it's definitely not just dozens of God Kings. There must be a large group of God Monarchs. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said in a serious tone, this means that the Gold Source Dragon Emperor's current strength is enough to destroy the Myriad Demon Alliance. Therefore, we must be careful. Hu Xinyue thought of something and reminded, young master, yesterday, AO Genieing Spy received news that someone was secretly spreading the news of the Gold Source Dragon Emperor's return. In the past year, this rumor has been spread countless times. However, this time, it seems to be true. Ji Tianxing frowned and said, continue. Hu Xinyue continued her analysis. Although the factions and God Kings on the continent have heard too many similar news and are already numb to it, the news has not spread yet. Many people don't believe it, even if they know about it. However, the news will spread eventually. In addition, our alliance has shrunk our defenses and increased our vigilance. These changes will all confirm the news. At that time, the Star Source continent, which had just calmed down, will be stirred up again. I believe that many of the old subordinates of the mysterious grotto will become restless. They might even take the initiative to join the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. Do you think we should keep an eye on those domain lords and first-rate factions? If they make any strange moves, we can assassinate them in advance. Ji Tianxing waved his hand and said, this is inevitable. Now, we have to gather our forces and focus on dealing with the Gold Source Dragon Emperor's counterattack. We can't split our forces to do this. No matter how the situation changes, no matter how many undercurrents there are, as long as we kill the Gold Source Dragon Emperor, everything will calm down. The Chief of Internal Affairs said worriedly, but this way, we will be in a passive position. The initiative is in the hands of the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. We don't know when he will counterattack or how he will attack. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and tapped his fingers on the table. He said, therefore, there is only one way for us to take the initiative. That is to investigate the Gold Source Dragon Emperor's whereabouts. Only when we know his whereabouts can we take the initiative to act. When Alliance leader Luo Ho returns, we can even assassinate the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. Once the assassination is successful, our alliance won't need to fight those experts. We can easily win. Chapter 38:16. Things were just as Ji Tianxing and Hu Xinyue had expected. At first, no one believed the news of the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's return. However, the news spread more and more, and it became more and more realistic. In addition, the Myriad Demon Alliance's actions were also known to the world. With the two pieces of news corroborating each other, most people and experts believed that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor had returned. As a result, the astral source continent that had finally calmed down became lively again. On the surface, there were endless discussions, but in the dark, countless factions and experts were ready to make a move. The situation became precarious. Smart people knew that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor subordinates had purposely spread the news and used some means to spread it even more widely. After all, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's prestige on this continent was deeply rooted. He had supreme prestige. The current situation was the most advantageous for the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. It was just that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor did not reveal his exact whereabouts. If he showed up somewhere and raised his arm, there would definitely be many followers. The entire astral source continent was in turmoil. The final battle between the mystical grotto and the myriad demon alliance was imminent. Meanwhile, the 9 mystical grotto in the northernmost part of the continent was as peaceful and quiet as ever. It was as if all the mundane matters in the world had nothing to do with the Golden Rock tribe. Ever since Patriarch Golden Rock brought Peng Fei back to the 9 mystical grotto a year ago, the entrance to the 9 mystical grotto had been sealed. In the past year, the entrance to the 9 mystical grotto had not been opened, and no one had entered or exited. Since then, Patriarch Golden Rock had predicted what would happen next. He also guessed that there would be even greater turmoil and calamity in the near future. The only thing he and the Golden Rock tribe could do was to stay out of it. The changes in the world and the changes in royal authority were all destined by the heavens. No one could be strong forever. No royal authority could stand forever. The Golden Rock tribe had been beaten by the heavens in the ancient era. Naturally, they had recognized the reality and obediently lay low. That was why they had been able to survive until now. This time, regardless of whether the mystical grotto or the myriad demon alliance won, the Golden Rock tribe was still as stable as Mount Tai. At this moment, in the depths of the 9 mystical grotto, there was a lone mountain that stood at the edge of the 9 mystical grotto, standing proudly in the wind. There were 3 thatched cottages at the peak of the lone peak, and an ancient tree with withered yellow leaves. As the cold wind blew, the few withered leaves on the ancient tree fell to the ground one by one. Under the ancient tree, there was a huge stone plate with a radius of 10 feet on the ground. The stone board was square in shape, with crisscrossing lines in between, forming a huge chessboard. A handsome young man from the Golden Rock clan in a white robe was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the chessboard. He was cultivating with his eyes closed. The chessboard glowed with a translucent jade light, and the crisscrossing patterns on the chessboard flickered with a 5-color divine light, exuding a divine aura that seemed to be in harmony with heaven and earth. At the edge of the chessboard, a golden-haired old man stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking at the cliff on the side of the lone peak. The youth who was cultivating in seclusion with divine light all over his body was Peng Fei. A year ago, when he left the Xuanji Grotto Heaven with Forefather Golden Rock, Forefather Golden Rock had asked him if he wanted to return to the 9 mystical grotto heaven or stay with Long Tian. According to past practice, Peng Fei would of course stay with Long Tian and was unwilling to return to the 9 mystical grotto heaven. However, when he instinctively opened his mouth to say the answer, he swallowed the words that were at the tip of his tongue. At that time, he stood at the peak of Sky Crane Mountain, frowning in silence and thinking for a long time. Forefather Golden Rock stood beside him and looked at him quietly, not rushing him. In the end, Peng Fei changed his mind and decided to return to the 9 mystical grotto heaven with Forefather Golden Rock. Although he had followed Ji Tianqing for a year, he had spent most of his time cultivating in seclusion in the Divine Pagoda and rarely had the chance to train with Ji Tianqing. However, Ji Tianqing's experience in that year could be said to be full of twists and turns and dangers. The responses he made and the occasional words he said to Peng Fei gave Peng Fei all sorts of insights. As a result, under Ji Tianqing's influence, Peng Fei gradually found answers to all the questions that he could not understand in the past. Ji Tianqing did not open his heart to Peng Fei, nor did he preach or enlighten him. However, he used his words and actions to influence Peng Fei's Dao heart and beliefs. Even if Peng Fei had insights and made the final decision, it was his own choice. This kind of subtle influence and teaching method was naturally the best and most effective. Of course, this method was only effective for smart people with high comprehension ability. If it was for stupid people, it was better to teach them directly. Peng Fei was smart and had high comprehension ability. The reason why he decided to return to the 9 mystical grotto heaven was because he had calmed down and thought carefully and realized that he had already obtained the answer he wanted. His Dao heart was no longer confused and lost. It had become clear and firm. Since that was the case, there was not much benefit in staying by Ji Tianqing's side. It was better to return to the 9 mystical grotto heaven and properly digest the insights and benefits he had gained in the past year, taking the opportunity to break through to the Divine King realm. Ancestor Golden Rock naturally expressed his support for Peng Fei's decision. This was because this highly respected and wise old man had sensed the change in Peng Fei when he first met him. Since Peng Fei understood, it meant that he had found the answer and direction. Of course, this was a good thing. Seeing that his great-great-grandson had matured and was about to break through to the Divine King realm, Ancestor Golden Rock brought Peng Fei back to the 9 mystical grotto heaven without hesitation. After returning, he brought Peng Fei to the peak of this mountain and let Peng Fei cultivate in seclusion under the ancient tree to break through to the Divine King realm in peace. This ancient tree originated from the ancient times. It looked old and decrepit on the surface, but its effects were miraculous. This mountain was where Ancestor Golden Rock cultivated in seclusion. Without his permission, no one was allowed to approach. Peng Fei cultivated in seclusion here. With the help of the ancient tree and the chessboard divine formation, as well as Ancestor Golden Rock's protection, he was naturally safe and undisturbed. Now that a year had passed, Peng Fei had already accumulated enough foundation and made all the preparations. Just 2 days ago, he had officially begun to break through the shackles. He swore to cross the chasm and enter the Divine King realm. He had already made up his mind. He would not stop until he broke through to the Divine King realm. At the same time, at the southernmost part of the Star Source continent, in the vast South Sea, a huge whirlpool with a radius of 10,000 miles had appeared on the surface of the sea since the ancient times. It swallowed seawater day and night. This huge and terrifying whirlpool was like a hole in the sky that could never be filled. No one knew where the whirlpool led to. However, there were a few Divine King experts who knew that the famous South Sea Blessed Land was hidden in this whirlpool. The entrance to the South Sea Blessed Land was very hidden, and it was located in an extremely dangerous whirlpool. Ordinary people could not enter at all. However, at this moment, a man from the Dragon Clan wearing a golden robe and a divine crown stepped into the whirlpool with a deer-horned elder. Chapter 38:17. The entrance to the Blessed Land had been sealed off by a divine array, and there were no experts guarding it. Seeing this, the man from the dragon race frowned and sneered. The battle whale race was still loyal to me in the past. I didn't expect them to seal off the entrance to the Blessed Land. What did Long Tian do to Divine King Battle Whale? Why is he so scared that he doesn't dare to show his face? After more than a month of investigation, the man from the dragon race, who is the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, already knew the details of the destruction of the Xuanji Grotto Heaven. At the critical moment, Divine King Battle Whale asked Old Ancestor Golden Rock for help. However, Old Ancestor Golden Rock turned against him and insisted on leaving. Divine King Battle Whale also lost to Long Tian and fled back to the South Sea Blessed Land. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor already knew about this. He came here today to see Divine King Battle Whale's attitude. If possible, he wanted to persuade Divine King Battle Whale to continue working for him against the Myriad Demon Alliance. Dragon Emperor, are we still going in? The deer-horned elder looked at the sealed entrance and asked with a bow. Of course we are going in. I want to ask Divine King Battle Whale what he wants. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor swung his sleeves angrily and took out his divine sword to slash at the entrance. The divine array at the entrance trembled and cracks appeared. When the deer-horned elder saw the Dragon Emperor attacking, he couldn't just stand by and watch. He quickly took out 2 Zidian axes and attacked the entrance. The divine array at the entrance of the South Sea Blessed Land was personally set up by Divine King Battle Whale. He didn't have enough time to set up a Supreme King Grade Divine Array, so he set up a High King Grade Divine Array. However, it was a High Grade Divine Array, and ordinary Divine Kings couldn't break it. However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was a Peak Divine King, and the Deer-Horned Elder was a 9th degree Divine King. How could the Divine Array withstand their attacks? In less than 10 breaths, the Divine Array was filled with cracks and was about to break. At this moment, a murderous roar came from within the formation. "Who are you? How dare you attack my South Sea blessed land? Are you tired of living?" Through the blazing white light screen, one could clearly see the commander of the guards guarding the entrance of the blessed land, roaring ferociously. That guard commander was a lower divine king, and he had over 100 divine Lord Realm Battle Whale clan guards by his side. All of them were holding sabers, spears, swords, and halberds. It was as if they were facing a great enemy. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's face darkened even more. He did not reply, but sped up his attack on the sealing immortal formation. The guard commander became even more furious and even started cursing loudly. After another 10 breaths of time, a crisp cracking sound rang out, and the sealing formation finally shattered. A 10-feet wide gap appeared as the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the deer-horned Elder charged into the South Sea blessed land in a flash. Shwa! Over 100 guards were in a towering rage when they suddenly saw 2 uninvited guests barging in. Their killing intent immediately exploded, and without the commander's order, they immediately surrounded and attacked. This was the instinctive reaction of the guards, and it had nothing to do with the identity of the intruder. The overwhelming divine arts and saber radiance were about to engulf the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the deer-horned Elder. However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was indifferent. He ignored the guards and looked coldly into the depths of the blessed land. On the other hand, the deer-horned Elder took a step forward and stood in front of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. His body emitted boundless golden light that was as dazzling as the sun. Boom! There was a loud explosion as the saber radiance, sword radiance, and divine arts were all shattered by the golden light. The ferocious impact sent the leader of the guards and more than 100 guards flying backward. The deer-horned Elder had shown mercy. The guard were all severely injured and vomiting blood, but none of them died. Even if these guards had offended the Dragon Emperor, he could not blame them even if he killed them on the spot. However, the owner of this blessed land was a powerful peak divine king, and he could possibly become the Dragon Emperor's assistant. Of course, the deer-horned Elder would not kill them so easily, lest he became enemies with them. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor glanced coldly at the scattered guards and shouted in a domineering and imposing tone, "Ask divine King Warwhale to come out and see me." Some of the smarter guards had guessed the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's identity. However, many of the guards were so furious that they were blinded by their anger. They roared and struggled to get up. They waved their weapons and attacked the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor again. By the time the guard commander regained his senses, it was too late to stop them. Seeing this, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's face darkened. However, at this moment, a beam of divine light lit up the sky in the distance, and a majestic roar sounded. Stop! That roar was like a bolt from the blue, and it caused the guards to tremble. Instinctively, they revealed looks of fear. At the same time, a dazzling golden light descended from the sky and enveloped the guards. With a series of muffled bangs, the divine spell attacks of the guards were all blocked by the golden light shield. The guards came back to their senses and no longer dared to attack. They all obediently stayed where they were and stared at the divine light that was speeding towards them. Whoosh! The beam of divine light traveled thousands of miles in an instant and landed on the ground. "All of you back down." The person who had arrived was as large as a mountain. He had a wide face and a flat mouth. He emitted the unique scent of the sea tribe. It was God Monarch Battle Whale. Hearing God Monarch Battle Whale's order, the guard commander bowed and hurriedly left with close to 100 guards. Only God Monarch Battle Whale, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, and the deer-horned Elder were left. After the Battle Whale guards retreated tens of thousands of miles away, God Monarch Battle Whale looked at the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and bowed apologetically. "I came late and allowed my people to offend your majesty. Please forgive me, your majesty." God Monarch Battle Whale did not mention that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had barged into the South Sea blessed land. Instead, he humbled himself and apologized. Seeing his attitude, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's gloomy expression eased a lot. He stared at God Monarch Battle Whale for a moment before saying with a faint smile, "The great God Monarch Battle Whale was forced by a junior to seal his blessed land and not show himself. Previously, I thought that you were severely injured by Long Tion and needed to recuperate. Now, it seems like you're not injured at all. That's strange." When God Monarch Battle Whale fought with Ji Tianxing, he was indeed severely injured. However, in the past year, God Monarch Battle Whale had already recovered from his injuries. Now, he looked perfectly fine. God Monarch Battle Whale could hear the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's unfriendly tone. He knew that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was already suspecting him of colluding with Long Tion. Without any hesitation, he bowed and explained, "Dragon Emperor, please enlighten me. A year ago, I fought with Long Tion, and I did suffer some serious injuries. I have indeed been in seclusion to recuperate for the past year. Regarding this, the elders, protectors, and deacons of my tribe can testify." There's no need. I'm still willing to believe you." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor waved his hand and laughed coldly. Wonderful Bookhouse. Chapter 38:18. The words, "I'm still willing to believe you," made God King War Whale's eyes flash with a strange light. Of course, he knew that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's words contained a lot of information and a hint of threat. Although the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's arrogant attitude made him feel uncomfortable, he maintained his composure. However, his expression did not change, and he still maintained a respectful attitude. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor did not waste any time and said directly, "You should know why I've come to find you personally." God King War Whale did not play dumb. He bowed and said, "In the battle a year ago, I failed to stop the Myriad Demon Alliance and protect Xuanji, Grotto Heaven. This is indeed a dereliction of duty on my part. I have disappointed your majesty, Dragon Emperor. Please punish me. However, Long Tion is too powerful, and I'm no match for him. I can't do anything. Speaking of which, old ancestor Golden Rock's desertion is despicable." While God King War Whale admitted his fault, he pushed the blame to old ancestor Golden Rock to divert the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's anger. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor frowned and said in a deep voice, "I'll find an opportunity to settle the score with old ancestor Golden Rock after I destroy the Myriad Demon Alliance. However, he has never been interested in worldly affairs and has never pledged his loyalty to me. It's within my expectations that he'll stay out of this." Although the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor was angry, he was not unreasonable. God King War Whale realized that he had failed to push the blame to the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. He could not help but feel uneasy. As expected, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor continued, "Since I've returned, I'll naturally gather all my forces to destroy the Myriad Demon Alliance and take revenge. Come give me a hand. After the Myriad Demon Alliance is pacified, I will remember your contribution." The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor treated God King War Whale as his subordinate. Although he was asking for the God King War Whale's help, the words that came out of his mouth carried a commanding tone. God King War Whale could only smile bitterly. He bowed deeply and said helplessly, "Please forgive me, your majesty. I can't do as you say." The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor was not surprised by this answer. He was already prepared. He stared at God King War Whale expressionlessly and asked coldly, "Why? Give me a reason." This, God King War Whale was left speechless. His expression kept changing. His eyes filled with hesitation and struggle. Out of his heart, he didn't want to tell her the truth. After all, that would be too embarrassing. However, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor was not to be trifled with. No matter what excuse he came up with, it would be difficult to deceive the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. Especially at this moment, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor didn't rush him. Instead, he stared at Yi Futian with a sharp gaze and exuded an intimidating aura. That sharp gaze seemed to be able to see through God King War Whale. Divine King War Whale hesitated for a long time before finally deciding to tell the truth. In any case, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor was the overlord of the continent, a peak god king. Even if he told him, it wouldn't be embarrassing. Furthermore, given the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's personality, he would not go around telling others about it. Your Majesty Dragon Emperor, to tell you the truth, I fought with Long Tian and lost him. He forced me to swear an oath to the heavenly Tao, and I was only able to escape. When God King War Whale revealed this embarrassing secret, he felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. The gold origin dragon emperor frowned as a cold glint flashed across his eyes. After a moment of silence, he asked in a deep voice, "Is Long Tian really that powerful?" The gold origin dragon emperor nodded and explained, "He killed Tao Yongsheng of the Tao Tai tribe and stole the primordial chaos bell." "I see." The gold origin dragon emperor was enlightened. He knew very well that there was a huge difference between a peak god king with a supreme grade king grade divine weapon and a peak god king without one. So, Long Tian forced you to swear an oath to the heavenly Tao to stay out of this matter and not attack him and the Myriad Demon Alliance? God King War Whale smiled bitterly and nodded. The Dragon Emperor is wise. That is indeed the case. Humph. How despicable. The gold origin Dragon Emperor's face darkened as he felt anger surging in his chest after his guess was confirmed. Now that God King War Whale had revealed the truth, he became even more magnanimous. In his opinion, no matter how overbearing the gold origin Dragon Emperor was, he should have backed off. However, he didn't expect the gold origin Dragon Emperor to refuse to give up after a moment of silence. He said, "What is the heavenly Tao? Does it exist? No one can be sure. Things like an oath to the heavenly Tao are even more illusory. As a peak god king, how can you be trapped because of this? If you believe in some *T oath, you will be trapped in a trap of your own making." God King War Whale was rendered speechless by this shameless excuse. He thought to himself, "Anyway, you are not the one who made the oath. If you break the oath, you will not be the one to suffer the wrath of the heavens. It is so easy for you to say that." Despite his anger, God King War Whale could only be patient and explain to the gold origin Dragon Emperor the authenticity of the oath to the heavenly Tao. Under his repeated explanations, the gold origin Dragon Emperor could only give up on the idea. Since God King War Whale was firm in his decision, the gold origin Dragon Emperor didn't say anything else and left angrily. Both parties parted on bad terms, but God King War Whale was still respectful and sent him out of the South Sea blessed land with a smile. After a while, the gold origin Dragon Emperor and the deer-horned elder left the South Sea blessed land. They crossed the vast sea and headed north. Seeing that the Dragon Emperor was still angry, the deer-horned elder persuaded, "Your Majesty, please calm down. God King War Whale is bound by the oath to the heavenly Tao and can't serve you." However, his attitude was still respectful, and he remembered his status. He didn't overstep his boundaries or show any disrespect. Speaking of which, he is simple-minded and weak. That's why he fell in a Long Tian's trap. If you take your anger out on him and don't trust him anymore, you will lose a great help. After the matter with the Myriad Demon Alliance is over, you can still control him. Before the deer-horned elder could finish, the gold origin Dragon Emperor sneered. "He is only useful to deal with the Myriad Demon Alliance. After I eliminate the Myriad Demon Alliance, what use will he be?" Without a doubt, the gold origin Dragon Emperor had given up on God King War Whale and remembered this debt. After the matter with the Myriad Demon Alliance was over, he would definitely find a reason to suppress and eliminate God King War Whale. The deer-horned old man was terrified when he thought about it, and a wisp of fear flashed through his eyes. He didn't dare say anything else. Not long after, the two left the South Sea and returned to the Star Source continent. At this moment, a communication jade slip descended from the sky and landed in front of the deer-horned elder. The deer-horned elder picked up the jade slip and read the message. He was delighted and reported to the gold origin Dragon Emperor, "Congratulations, Your Majesty. The news of your return for revenge has spread across the continent. Everyone is excited. Now, you are the focus of everyone's attention. In the past 3 days, more than 10 forces have contacted us. They want to pledge their loyalty to Your Majesty and help Your Majesty eliminate the Myriad Demon Alliance. After a few God Kings investigation and selection, We have finally decided on 9 forces that could be used by us. Of course, the forces that submitted to the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor were mixed. Those who were too weak were not qualified to follow the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. Those who could be used by the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor were either God Kings or a large group of Upper God Kings. Just by taking in 9 factions, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had gained over 1,000 elites. After hearing the deer-horned elder's report, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's brows relaxed. He looked at the northern sky and ordered in a deep voice, "Send my order to them. Secretly gather our men and wait for me in the Qianfeng region. There is no time to lose. Within 10 days, I will personally go to the Myriad Demon City and eliminate the Myriad Demon Alliance." Wonderful Book House. Chapter 38-19. In the past few days, the situation in the Star Source continent had become more and more turbulent. Almost all the factions and empires knew that the Dragon Emperor had returned and was about to launch a counterattack against the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Most people were not qualified to participate in the battle. They could only discuss this matter and support the Gold Source Dragon Emperor spiritually. However, there were also a few experts and factions that secretly contacted the God Kings under the Gold Source Dragon Emperor, hoping to join the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. Those smart people knew that the elders and experts of the mysterious Grotto Heaven had all died in the battle a year ago. Now, the Gold Source Dragon Emperor needed people. If they could follow the Gold Source Dragon Emperor to destroy the 10,000 Demon Alliance, they would definitely be promoted. Therefore, there were many experts and factions that wanted to join the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. However, the Gold Source Dragon Emperor did not appear in public, and his whereabouts were too secretive. Ordinary people could not contact him at all. If he were to make a public appearance somewhere, it would really be a grand occasion where he would raise his arms and rally his followers. In the heavily guarded 10,000 Demon City, countless elite soldiers were tense. They were filled with vigilance and worry. Even though the acting alliance leader was in the city and had already set up an inescapable net, the Gold Source Dragon Emperor was still in the city. They were not confident that the Gold Source Dragon Emperor could launch a counterattack at any time. They were filled with worry. It was at this moment that the Chief of Internal Affairs finally contacted the old alliance leader. Soon after, an exciting piece of good news spread, causing the hearts of countless elders, hall masters, and branch masters to calm down. The old alliance leader had finally returned to the 10,000 Demon City. With 2 peak God Kings in the 10,000 Demon City, the 10,000 Demon Alliance was stable. Even if the Gold Source Dragon Emperor led experts to attack, he would be seeking his own death. All the members of the 10,000 Demon Alliance had the same idea. Their morale was greatly boosted. At the same time, in the 10,000 Demon City, in the Alliance leader's study, Ji Qianxing, the Chief of Internal Affairs, the left and right protectors, and a few elders stood in a row and greeted God King Luoho, who had just returned. Seeing that God King Rahu had returned safely, everyone was excited. The heavy burden in their hearts had finally been lifted. God King Luoho sat in the armchair behind the study table. He smiled as he watched everyone greet him. After everyone bowed and exchanged a few pleasantries, God King Rahu pointed at the man standing beside him and introduced him to everyone. "This is the 5th Divine, King Jinwu. He's a friend that I made when I was traveling in the outer realm and searching for information. For so many years, it was all thanks to Jinwu Divine King's help that I was able to move around in the extraterritorial realm smoothly. This time, Jinwu Divine King was a great help in dealing with the matters of the Xuanji Grotto. Everyone, come and greet the 5th Golden Divine King and get to know each other. Soon, everyone would have to work together to resist the Xuanji Grotto's counterattack. If they were too unfamiliar with each other, it would be difficult for them to work together. Thus, God King Rahu hurriedly introduced everyone to each other. Ji Qianxing and the others turned to the Jinwu Divine Monarch and sized up the 3-legged man curiously. Jinwu Godly King was tactful. He knew that these people were Godly King Luoho's trusted aides. Before anyone could greet him, he smiled and took the initiative to say, "Alliance leader, you are flattering me." Back then, in the outer realm, If you had not saved me twice, I would have turned into ashes and died in a foreign land. How could I have survived until now? It is my honor to be able to follow you and share your burdens. Of course, it is my honor to be able to meet all of you here. After speaking, Jinwu Divine King took the initiative to greet Ji Tianxing and the others. Ji Tianxing, the head of internal affairs, the protectors, and the elders also bowed to Jinwu Divine King and introduced themselves. Both parties exchanged pleasantries and chatted for a long time before it ended. In this way, everyone was acquainted with Jinwu Divine King. However, when he would gain everyone's trust and friendship would depend on his subsequent performance. After everyone finished exchanging pleasantries, the head of internal affairs and the left and right protectors reported to God King Rahu about the Myriad Demon Alliance's current defense situation. God King Rahu expressed his approval. After knowing that it was Ji Tianxing's arrangement, he felt gratified. After discussing official matters, Ji Tianxing asked, "You should have returned to the Myriad Demon City a few days ago. Why did you disappear for a few days? What happened?" Not only was Ji Tianxing puzzled, but the head of internal affairs, the protectors, and the elders also looked at him and had the same question in their hearts. God King Rahu smiled and said, "Young master, this is also something I wanted to tell everyone. The reason why I disappeared for a few days was because I went to a special place and met a special expert." Everyone was still puzzled, but Ji Tianxing guessed what he meant and asked, "You want to find strong reinforcements?" "That's right." God King Rahu smiled and nodded. He said, "I met that expert and chatted with him about old times. I also asked him for help. He agreed, although he did not return with me. He will help when the time is right." The head of internal affairs was stunned for a moment and asked, "Alliance Master, is the expert you're talking about a peak God King?" "Of course." God King Rao nodded without hesitation. The head of internal affairs, the left and right protectors, and the elders were instantly excited and applauded. "That's great. With another peak God King's help, we now have 3 Supreme Being experts." We have 3 peak God Kings. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor is dead for sure this time. Previously, we were still worried that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor would counterattack. Now, we can't wait for him to come and die. As long as we can kill the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor, our alliance will be able to control the Star Source continent and establish a foundation for eternity. Alliance Master is mighty. Young Master is wise. Myriad Demon Alliance will win. Everyone was bursting with confidence and cheered excitedly. They could not wait to fight the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor immediately. However, Ji Tianxing was thinking more than everyone else. While he was happy, he was also secretly guessing the identity of the peak God King. He used his consciousness to send a voice transmission to God King Rahu. "Snake Fu, the peak God King you're talking about is Master's friend, right?" God King Rahu did not hide anything and nodded with a smile. Ji Tianxing asked again, "Since he is a peak God King, he is definitely not from the Star Source continent. Is it Brother Red Dragon from the Red Dragon continent, or the Sacred Dragon Emperor from the Sacred Dragon continent? Or that old scoundrel from the Black Dragon continent?" Ji Tianxing knew very well that there were 5 Supreme Being Dragon Emperors in the Dragon Realm. Other than the Gold Dragon Emperor from the Star Source continent, his master, Heaven Sealing Dragon Emperor, was on good terms with the other 3 Dragon Emperors. As the only disciple of Heaven Sealing Dragon Emperor, he was not unfamiliar with the other 3 Dragon Emperors. The Red Dragon Emperor, the overlord of the Red Dragon continent, was on good terms with him and took good care of him. The old scoundrel from the Black Dragon continent was on the best terms with Heaven Sealing Dragon Emperor. As for the Sacred Dragon Emperor from the Sacred Dragon continent, although he was only on friendly terms with Heaven Sealing Dragon Emperor, he might still help him on account of their friendship. Chapter 38:20. Out of his heart, God King Rahu wanted to tell Ji Tianxing the truth. But remembering that person's instructions, he could only keep it a secret. He transmitted to Ji Tianxing, "Young master, you guessed right. It is indeed one of the 3. Ji Tianxing chuckled. "You still want to keep a secret? This secretive style is a bit like that unscrupulous old man." Immortal King Luoho smiled. Soon, When we go to war with abstruse grotto heaven, you will see him. Ji Tianqing thought for a while, then frowned and asked, I remember Master saying that the 5 great dragon emperors had an agreement. They seem to have sworn a heavenly oath not to kill each other. Will that person help us deal with the Gold Source Dragon Emperor? Immortal King Luoho was a little surprised. He transmitted, so young Master also knows this secret. He did explain it to me. When we go to war with abstruse grotto heaven, he will not personally deal with the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. I went to look for him to ask for his help in protecting young Lord's safety. Ji Tianqing frowned and said disappointedly, in that case, he is not our strong helper, but only a protective talisman. Immortal King Luoho did not mind. He said calmly, fighting for supremacy with abstruse grotto heaven is our business. We should not borrow the help of others. Interfering with the succession of the continent's overlord is a huge karma. It could very well affect the will of the heavens. Peak immortal kings like him and old ancestor Golden Rock are at a critical juncture of comprehending the power of the heavens. Naturally, they would not dare to get involved in such a huge karma. Karma and the will of the heavens were all very vague sayings. But that was because the common people had not seen it with their own eyes. Of course, they would not believe it. But experts like Ji Tianqing and Immortal King Luoho believed it without a doubt. They knew very well how sacred, powerful, and unpredictable the will of the heavens was. Therefore, it was understandable that the Dragon Emperor did not deal with the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. The regret in Ji Tianqing's heart also dissipated a lot. Your words have reminded me of something. In the past, God King Warwhale probably didn't believe in the will of the heavenly Tao and karma. That's why he accepted the War Dragon King's invitation to help the mysterious paradise deal with us. However, I taught him a lesson and forced him to swear an oath to the heavenly Tao. Now, he definitely won't dare to get involved in this matter. Luoho God King revealed a look of interest. He nodded and said, Young Master, please tell me the details of this matter later. All right, let's get down to business first. Ji Tianqing stopped talking to him through telepathy and turned to look at Jinwu Divine King, Fu Ergu, the left and right protectors, and a few elders. Now that the overall situation has been decided, you can speak freely if you have any ideas about the next action plan. God King Ra nodded as well. Everyone, give us your suggestions. Let's brainstorm. Everyone fell silent, frowning as they pondered over the method and wording. Ji Tianqing, the chief of internal affairs, Hu Xinyue, and the others all glanced at Jinwu Divine King. Jinwu Divine King was very tactful. He bowed and said with a smile, I'm just following the leader. I'm following his orders. As for the Dragon Realm and the mysterious paradise, I'm still not familiar with the situation. I don't have any plans or countermeasures, so I won't embarrass myself. Please give me your suggestions. If you have any orders or need my help, I'll do it. Jinwu Divine King made his attitude clear. He was just following orders and running errands. He would never criticize the Myriad Demon Alliance, nor would he overstep his authority. The chief of internal affairs, the left and right protectors, and a few elders were relieved. They felt that this person was very sensible and would be able to get along well in the future. Currently, the situation in the Star Source continent was turbulent. The Myriad Demon Alliance's emotions were tense. They could have a decisive battle with the mysterious paradise at any time. If at this time there was discord among the experts, or even signs of a power struggle, it would be a fatal blow to the Myriad Demon Alliance. Previously, everyone was still a little worried. Now, they lowered their guard. Therefore, Hu Xinyue took the lead and said, since it's a brainstorming session, I'll throw a brick to attract the jade. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor hasn't shown himself yet. Instead, he's secretly recruiting people and creating rumors and rumors. He wants us to panic. I'm guessing that he must have planted spies near the Myriad Demon City. He might even have spies in the Alliance. When our defense is weakened, it'll be the time for the mysterious paradise to launch a large-scale attack. I suggest that the Alliance's soldiers maintain a high level of vigilance at all times. Also, we must strictly investigate those who are acting strangely. We can't reveal any flaws. Hearing this, Everyone nodded slightly in agreement. With Hu Xinyue taking the lead, Ao Jining also said, I'll control the intelligence network. I'll do my best to find out any information about the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Currently, our disadvantage is that we're in the open, while the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor is in the dark. He has the initiative. As long as we can find traces of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, we can turn from passive to active. I believe that this should be a breakthrough for us to defeat the mysterious paradise. Although we have many subordinates, we don't have any peak experts. It's inconvenient for us to do things. I'd like to ask Lord Alliance Master to send 1 or 2 peak experts to help. Everyone felt that Ao Jining's words made sense. They all nodded in agreement. Luoho God King looked at the left and right protectors. The left and right protectors stroked their beards and smiled. The 2 elders have said what needs to be said. We've done what needs to be done under young master's orders. Luoho God King then looked at the chief of internal affairs, Fu Ergu. He bowed without hesitation and said, I don't know much about external affairs. I've troubled everyone. However, I'll do my best to deal with the internal affairs of the Myriad Demon City, as well as the investigation of spies and the elimination of the mysterious Paradise's spies. Luoho God King nodded in satisfaction. He then looked at Ji Tianxing and asked, Young Master, do you have any additional instructions? Ji Tianxing had already thought of what to say. He said directly, based on the current situation, our alliance's morale is stable. We're in a state of high alert. Our battle strength is also at its peak. Even if there are some small mistakes or problems, they could be resolved quickly. However, the biggest problem is that we're in a passive position. We can only wait for the mysterious paradise to attack. As the saying goes, you can only be a thief for 1,000 days. How can you guard against a thief for 1,000 days? No matter how elite a soldier is, if they're constantly in a tense state, there will be a day when they collapse. If the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor is cunning enough and patient enough, he'll find an opportunity to strike after a few more months. Therefore, we must prepare a backup plan on top of being fully alert. Luoho God King, the protectors, and the elders' eyes lit up. They all asked, Young Master, what preparations? Ji Tianxing smiled confidently and said, If the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor doesn't act, then we'll force him to show himself. Chapter 38:21. Force the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor to show himself. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor has already returned to the Star Source continent for 2 months, but he still refuses to show himself. He's obviously very patient and sinister. I wonder if young Master has a good plan to force him to show himself? The left and right protectors, Hu Xinyue, and a few elders all looked at Ji Tianxing expectantly. Even the Jinwu Divine King was looking at Ji Tianxing with shining eyes and a smile on his face. This quick-witted, 3-legged fellow could tell that this young master was extraordinary and had a high prestige in the league after interacting with him for a short hour. Everyone was still thinking about how to guard against the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's sudden attack. However, he had already thought about how to attack if the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor chose not to show himself. Just this point alone made the Jinwu Divine King feel that this young master was worthy of everyone's trust and respect. He was also very interested in the young master's second plan. Ji Tianxing said, I've set up a new sealing formation in the Xuanji Grotto. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor once broke through the formation and returned to the Xuanji Grotto. However, he did not stay in the Xuanji Grotto and did not rebuild his home. In order to seize the initiative, he chose to hide in the dark and temporarily give up on the Xuanji Grotto. He is very wise. He knows that only by destroying our alliance can he truly take back the Xuanji Grotto. However, this also gives us an opportunity. Hu Xinyue immediately understood what he meant. Her eyes lit up as she asked, Young Master, you mean we can take advantage of the Xuanji Grotto? Yes. Ji Tianxing nodded and explained, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor is not in a hurry. He wants to stall for time and attack after we've been worn down. Then we'll take control of the Xuanji Grotto and build a divine palace with great fanfare. We'll spread the news and let everyone know that we're going to take over the Xuanji Grotto. AO Genieing will be in charge of intelligence and spread the news with exaggerated details. For example, our alliance is the rightful ruler and the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor has died in the Outer Realm. Another example is that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor has secretly returned to the Star Source continent. However, he's living an ignoble existence and does not dare to take revenge. At that time, how will the people talk about it? Where will the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's dignity go? Hearing this, everyone understood and smiled. Young Lord is wise. AO Genieing was the most excited one, and he was even eager to try. He said emotionally, leading the wind and public opinion is what I am best at. At that time, I will slander and humiliate the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Let's see if he can still keep his cool. If he continued to endure, he would lose all of his reputation and dignity. Even if he regained control of the Xuanji Grotto, his prestige would plummet. But with his nature, he won't be able to tolerate it no matter what. He'll definitely make a high-profile appearance, announce it to the world, and launch a large-scale attack. The left and right protectors, the head of internal affairs, and several elders also agreed with this idea and put forward their own suggestions. With a few words of discussion, many details were perfected. Seeing everyone's anticipation and eagerness, God King Rahu revealed a smile and nodded. Young master, what you said is indeed a good idea. It will save time and effort. Since that's the case, I'll leave this matter to you. Let's get started as soon as possible. Okay. Ji Tianxing nodded in agreement. God King Rahu then instructed God King Jinwu. Jinwu, the third elder, doesn't have any top experts under him. Go and help him gather information and carry out some missions. God King Jinwu naturally wouldn't decline and agreed without hesitation. God King Rahu then looked at the head of internal affairs and said, I'll leave the internal affairs of the Demon City to you, as well as the matter of eliminating spies and spies. I won't disappoint the alliance leader. Fu Ergu immediately bowed. After the discussion, everyone bid farewell and left. Only Ji Tianxing and God King Rahu were left in the study. The two sat down and continued to discuss the details of the mission. Young Lord, go to the Xuanji Grotto to build a divine palace. AO Genieing will cooperate with you to spread the news and force the Golden Dragon Emperor to appear. When the time comes, the Golden Dragon Emperor will very likely lead his troops to attack the Demon City. However, he might also lead his experts to attack the Xuanji Grotto in anger. The Demon City and the Xuanji Grotto are very far apart. We can't split into two groups, right? Ji Tianxing smiled and said, You're more thoughtful than them. You even considered this drawback. It's fine, I've already thought about it. I'll set up a teleportation divine formation in the Xuanji Grotto that connects to the Demon City. This will make it easier for us to send reinforcements. Also, the construction of the divine palace is just a pretense. We won't really invest too many people. The real elites will stay in the Demon City, and I'll bring the rest with me. God King Rahu knew that he had the primordial chaos bell and could bring countless soldiers with him. He didn't ask for details. After all, Ji Tianxing had led his troops to attack the Xuanji Grotto strongholds and sneaked into the Xuanji Grotto to attack the Golden Dragon Mountain's headquarters. Both God King Rahu and Ji Tianxing knew what to do. They also let the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor use what he learned and used it against the Demon Alliance. The two of them conversed in secret for an hour before Ji Tianxing took his leave. Following that, Ji Tianxing selected over 1,000 elite Divine Lord experts and 5 Divine King experts to hide in the Primal Chaos Primordial Bell. The Demon City also spread the news that they were recruiting more than 2,000 craftsmen. 2 days later, Ji Tianxing steered a divine ship and brought the 2,000 or so artisans to the Enigma Paradise at lightning speed. After arriving at the Xuanji Grotto, he first prepared the 9 bends of the Heaven River Formation at the entrance. Then, he led the God Kings and God Lords to build a teleportation divine formation in the depths of the grotto to connect to the Demon City. At the same time, the intelligence network that AO Genieing was in charge of started spreading all kinds of news on the Star Source continent. There were 2 sides to the news. One was that the Demon Alliance wanted to take control of the Xuanji Grotto, and establish themselves as the overlord. On the other hand, they were unscrupulously slandering the golden source dragon emperor. The situation in the Star Source continent was already unstable and tense to the extreme. The commoners, factions, and experts were all paying attention to the Demon Alliance and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's every move. The news was spread by the Demon Alliance to all regions in the continent at an extremely fast speed. In just a few days, everyone knew about it. In the beginning, many experts and factions did not believe that the Demon Alliance would be so arrogant to enter the Xuanji Grotto at this juncture. For 7 consecutive days, there were countless experts and secret agents gathering information in the vicinity of Sky Crane Mountain. In the end, those experts and spies found that there were indeed people entering and leaving the Xuanji Grotto. Some experts used their mystiques to disguise themselves and sneak into the Xuanji Grotto. Then, they saw that there were indeed more than 2,000 craftsmen in the ruins of the Golden Dragon Mountain. They were busy building divine palaces. When the news spread, it caused a huge uproar on the Star Source continent. Everyone knew that the Demon Alliance was really going to take control of the Xuanji Grotto. This was basically trampling on the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's face. For a time, the situation on the continent was extremely tense. Turbulent undercurrents could erupt at any time. The public opinion and the direction of the wind started to become chaotic and complicated. This lessened the pressure on the Demon Alliance, but cast a shadow over the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. As all kinds of messy news spread, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's reputation became worse and worse. His status in the hearts of the commoners also plummeted. Smart factions and experts knew that the Demon Alliance was forcing the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor to show himself. However, the commoners did not understand. They only knew that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor did not dare to show himself. It was very strange and disappointing. Chapter 38:22. When a situation was extremely tense and the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's reputation was in tatters, Fifth Gene was also the busiest. He only had one mission, and that was to help AO Genieing investigate the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's whereabouts. As long as he could confirm the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's whereabouts, it would be a great contribution. This was because everyone in the Myriad Demon Alliance believed that as long as they could confirm the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's whereabouts, the old Alliance Master and young Alliance Master would definitely be able to kill him. However, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's forbearance exceeded everyone's expectations. Even though his reputation was in tatters and he had been slandered by all sorts of rumors, he still refused to show himself, and his whereabouts were never revealed. Even a Ninth Heaven Realm Divine King, like Fifth Gene, who had the Myriad Demon Alliance's powerful intelligence network, could not find the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's whereabouts. Therefore, in these 10 days, the Myriad Demon Alliance seemed to have the upper hand on the surface and suppressed the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor in terms of reputation. However, in reality, Divine King Luo Ho, the General Manager, the Protectors, and the Elders were all worried for Ji Tianxing and were extremely worried. Without knowing the whereabouts of the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor, they could not predict whether his next target would be the Myriad Demon City or the Xuanji Cave. The Myriad Demon City was still fine, as 70% of the Myriad Demon Alliance's elite forces were gathered there, and they were heavily guarded. However, in the Xuanji Cave, there were not many true experts around Ji Tianxing. There were only 5 Divine King experts and over 1,000 Divine Monarchs. The remaining 2,000 over people were all craftsmen with weak combat strength. 12 days passed. The tense situation in the Stellar Source continent was like an extremely taut bowstring that could snap at any time. Finally, on the morning of the 13th day, before the sun rose, a figure covered in a black robe and a large cloak silently descended on the peak of the Sky Crane Mountain. This tall figure stood in the sea of clouds and looked up at the bright moon in the sky. An elder with antlers who was also wearing a black robe and a cloak followed silently beside the figure. Without a doubt, they were the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor and the Elder with Antlers. The bright moon in the sky was once again entangled by the 9 intersecting heavenly rivers. Clearly, Ji Tianxing had sealed the entrance to the Enigma Grotto. A few days ago, many secret agents and experts had come to the vicinity of Sky Crane Mountain to inquire about the situation in Xuanji Grotto. At that time, the entrance to the Xuanji Grotto had not been sealed, and many craftsmen could be seen entering and leaving. There were even people who could possess the body of a craftsman or disguise themselves to sneak into the Xuanji Grotto to gather information. At that moment, the Grotto Heaven's entrance was sealed. No one could enter or leave, and there were no guard around Sky Crane Mountain. The deer-horned elder looked at the bright moon and said with a complicated tone, "Your Majesty, there were still craftsmen coming in and out of this place a few days ago. Our spies were able to sneak in to investigate the situation. But now, the entrance to the Grotto Heaven was sealed, and no one could enter." He was afraid that the craftsmen in the Grotto Heaven were just bluffing when they built the Divine Palace. It was obviously a trap set up by the 10,000 Demons Alliance to force you to show up. Right now, the elite forces of the 10,000 Demon Alliance must be hiding in the Mystic Paradise, waiting for us to walk into their trap. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor stared at the cave entrance and said coldly in a low voice, "That's right. I understand what you've said." Many forces and God King experts could see the sinister intentions of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. But what's the use of that? How can I allow those bastards from the 10,000 Demon Alliance to slander and tarnish my reputation? They want to stir up the situation and force me to show myself through the mouths of the people. Since I've made sufficient preparations, there's no need to hide anymore. I'll fulfill their wishes today. I'll take back Xuanji Grotto and announce to the world that the Star Source continent belongs to me. The 10,000 Demon Alliance are all traitors that everyone has the right to kill. When the time comes, I'll send a decree to the entire continent. The 10,000 Demon Alliance will become the public enemy, and no one will tolerate them. The deer-horned elder frowned slightly and said worriedly, "But Your Majesty, we've already waited for so long and recruited 15 forces. Why are we in such a hurry? If we wait for a few more days, we can recruit a few more forces and be more prepared. At that time, we can directly attack the enemy's den and annihilate the myriad demon city as easily as crushing dry weeds." Before the deer-horned elder could finish, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor interrupted him and said calmly, "You are good at scheming and scheming. You might be able to do well in the outer realm, but not in the dragon realm. If I do as you said, I will be regarded as a sordid and ruthless man, even if I destroy the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Such people could be ambitious and ruthless, but they could not be emperors or overlords. Like today, using only 70% of the strategy and 30% of the strength, this was a bold and astute way of the emperor. The outcome is important, but reputation and prestige are even more important." After saying that, he turned his head to look at the deer-horned elder and said in a deep voice, "Don't forget, this emperor is not expanding our territory, but quelling a rebellion. If we lose the hearts of the people, even if we reclaim the lost land, we will disappoint the people." The deer-horned old man could only helplessly sigh when he saw how stubborn he was. He bowed and said, "Yes, Your Majesty." He still felt that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's actions were not reliable enough. However, he also understood that this was the Dragon Realm. The Dragon race and the millions of demons had their own pride, thoughts, and beliefs. If one wanted to rule a continent for a long time, it was not enough to rely on martial strength alone. One also needed the hearts of the people and prestige. This was unlike the outer realm, where there were many races, beliefs, and only believed in martial strength. Regardless of whether it was scheming or not, whoever won was right. Swoosh! Just as the deer-horned elder was lamenting, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor took out a dark golden dragon-shaped divine sword. The divine sword shone with white light and opened the world within the sword, forming a space door in the sky. Then, 60 God King experts flew out of the space door and gathered behind the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Among these people, There were 11 upper god kings, and the rest were intermediate god kings. Although the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's divine sword already contained over 100 god kings and over 3,000 god lords, these 60 god kings were stronger. Previously, they had come here with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and worked together to break the great formation of 9 bends of the Sky River. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor held the Golden Dragon Divine Sword and pointed at the bright moon in the sky. He ordered, "You have broken this formation before. Today, I will only give you half a day's time." The deer-horned elder quickly bowed and said, "Please rest assured, Your Majesty. We will do our best." After saying that, he led the 60 god king experts into the sky and spread out around the bright moon. Just like before, the deer-horned elder was in control of the situation. He commanded the 60 god kings to form a formation and work together to break the formation. With the experience of breaking the formation the previous time, everyone worked together very well this time. Moreover, their casting speed was doubled. Everyone thought that they would be able to break the great formation of 9 bends of the Sky River within half a day. However, when the deer-horned elder saw the structure of the formation, he instantly frowned and his expression turned ugly. Chapter 38:23. Bastard. He actually changed the structure of the array and added 9 more transformations. The deer-horned elder stared at the 9 bends of Heaven River array coldly as he murmured to himself, "I thought that the array we broke previously was already the peak state of this divine array. I didn't expect him to make 9 more transformations just by making some minor adjustments to the array, increasing its power by 30%. This kid's comprehension and array Tao attainments are at the peak of perfection. It's really terrifying." The array was still the same, but the method they used to break it was useless. They had to observe and break it again. The half-day deadline given by the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was impossible to achieve. Therefore, the deer-horned elder could only report the truth to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was furious, but there was nothing he could do. He could only suppress his anger and observe the array personally to think of a way to break it. 2 hours later, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor finally thought of a way to break it. He personally took charge of the situation and instructed the deer-horned elder and the 60 god kings to cooperate with him. Swoosh, 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 as the dazzling divine lights entered the 9 bends of Heaven River array. The 9 bends of Heaven River array shone with silver light and released powerful divine power fluctuations. The work of breaking the array began in an orderly manner. There were no guards at the peak of Sky Crane Mountain. However, there were more than 30 armored and sword-wielding guards at the entrance of the Xuanji Grotto Heaven. They guarded the entrance day and night without rest. Ever since the young Alliance Master personally sealed the entrance 4 days ago, they had been guarding the entrance without leaving. Of course, their mission was not to stop the invaders, but to monitor the movements of the 9 bends of Heaven River array. If there was any abnormal reaction from the array, they would immediately report it to the young Alliance Master. At this moment, the spatial door with a radius of 10,000 feet suddenly trembled and flashed with a blinding white light. The 30 or so guards immediately became alert and stared at the spatial gate with vigilant gazes. The leader of the guards took out his communication jade slip without hesitation and reported the situation to the young Alliance Master. In the depths of the Grotto Heaven, the ruins of the Golden Dragon Mountain had been flattened by many craftsmen over the past few days. Countless wood and stone materials were piled up on the flattened ground. There were also many palace walls that had just been built. More than 2,000 craftsmen were ordered to build the Divine Palace. They were busy for a few days. However, 4 days ago, the young Alliance Master issued an order to stop the construction work. After that, all of the craftsmen were gathered together and brought to the depths of the mysterious paradise. They entered a certain palace at the foot of the mountains to rest and recuperate. At this time, Ji Tianxing was in the deepest part of the mountains, at the peak of a giant mountain that was tens of thousands of feet high. The peak of the mountain was originally covered with forests and piles of rocks, but now it was leveled. The The ground of the mountain peak with a radius of 100 miles was paved with huge bluestone, forming a spacious square. In the middle of the square was a tall altar with a radius of 10,000 feet. The altar that had gathered dozens of materials and consumed hundreds of billions of resources was actually a teleportation divine array. In order to set up this transmission array that connected to the Thousand Demon City, Ji Tianxing and the 9 divine king powerhouses spent a full 9 days and 9 nights. Of the 9 divine king powerhouses, 5 were brought by him from the Thousand Demon Alliance, including divine King Wanli and 2 elders. The other 4 were naturally Yun Yao, Ji Ku, Chao Qingyu, and Bai Feng. After setting up the teleportation divine array, Ji Tianxing and the 9 divine kings returned to the distorted space-time and the divine clock world to recuperate. At this time, Ji Tianxing sensed that the great 9 bands of Heaven River array was moving. He ended his cultivation and left the distorted space-time. Swoosh! With a flash of white light, he appeared on the square at the peak of the mountain. He raised his hand and put away the 9 heavens 10 absolutes pagoda. He frowned and looked in the direction of the paradise entrance. He used his mind to sense the changes in the great 9 bands of Heaven River array. At this time, a communication jade slip flew from the sky and landed in front of him. He picked up the jade slip and used his divine sense to read the message inside. The guard commander reported respectfully. Reporting to the young Alliance Master, there are experts attacking the seal array. Ji Tianxing carefully sensed the changes in the array. He had an answer in his heart. He muttered to himself, "They are not attacking. They are casting spells to break the array." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor could not hold back and attacked. Therefore, he used the communication jade slip to order the guards to retreat to the Golden Dragon Mountain ruins immediately. Immediately after, he sent a message to Divine King Luoho, asking the elites of the Thousand Demon Alliance to gather and prepare to teleport to the mysterious paradise through the teleportation divine array. Swoosh! The communication jade slip flew high into the sky and disappeared. Ji Tianxing also left the peak of the mountain and rushed to the paradise entrance to activate the great 9 bends of Heaven River array. Although the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had brought dozens of divine king powerhouses and could definitely break the array, but he still had to stop them and buy more time for the Thousand Demon Alliance's soldiers. More than 10 days ago, when Ji Tianxing left the Thousand Demon City, Divine King Luoho, Wu Xinyue, and the others had already started making preparations. At this moment, Divine King Luoho received Ji Tianxing's message. He immediately relaxed his brows and smiled as though he had been relieved of a heavy burden. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor is a sly old fox. He finally cannot hold back. I guessed right. He did not dare to attack the Thousand Demon City because he wanted to be safe. So he went to attack the mysterious paradise. Divine King Luoho sneered and kept the communication jade slip. He quickly ordered the left and right protectors to gather the elite soldiers. Soon, the urgent sound of a bell rang in the Thousand Demon City and spread to every corner of the city. Thousands of Sir God powerhouses and dozens of divine king powerhouses had been recuperating in the city, waiting for orders. When they heard the bell and the orders of their superiors, they quickly gathered at the city square in an orderly manner. Although the city was huge, thousands of people were scattered around the city, guarding different posts. However, these elite soldiers still managed to gather within 2 hours. Immediately after, Grand Elder Hu Xinyue personally led the soldiers into an underground palace in the depths of the Divine Palace. In that spacious but dark underground palace, there was a teleportation divine formation that had been set up not long ago. Under the lead of the left and right protectors and the 7 elders, more than 3,000 soldiers stepped into the teleportation divine formation and left the Thousand Demon City. After the soldiers left, Divine King Luoho, the Chief of Internal Affairs, and Divine King Jinwu also rushed over. At the edge of the teleportation divine formation, Divine King Luoho patted the Chief of Internal Affairs' shoulder and said earnestly, "Although I know that you want to fight the enemy with everyone, I know that you must protect the Thousand Demon City. You must stay behind to protect the Thousand Demon City. This time, 80% of the Alliance's elite forces will go to the mysterious paradise to participate in the battle. The Thousand Demon City's defenses are at their weakest, and it is also the most dangerous time. This is our home and nest. Nothing must happen to it. Therefore, I can only be at ease if I hand this difficult task to you. I will definitely not disappoint you. The Chief of Internal Affairs had a complicated expression on his face. He bowed solemnly and watched Divine King Luoho and Divine King Jinwu step into the teleportation divine formation. Chapter 38:24. Inside the Xuanji Cave. Deep within the mountains, at the peak of a giant mountain. On the square, which had a radius of 100 miles, the tall altar glowed with a divine light, releasing beams of white light one after another. Groups of divine sovereign realm experts of the Myriad Demon Alliance flew out of the altar and landed on the square made of blue stones. In just 100 breaths, more than 3,000 soldiers had arrived at the Xuanji Cave from the 10,000 Demon City through the teleportation array. They landed on the plaza and arranged themselves neatly into 6 teams. There was no sign of panic on their faces. The left and right protectors, who Xin Yue and a few elders were the leaders of the 6 teams. After organizing their teams, they looked at the altar and waited for their alliance master to arrive. Whoosh! Whoosh! When Luoho Supreme Being and Golden Fifth Supreme Being flew out from the altar, everyone had finally arrived. The soldiers did not salute. They only looked at the alliance master with burning gazes and excitement. Their blood was boiling in their bodies. Luoho Supreme Being looked at the entrance of the cave. Although his spiritual consciousness could not detect the situation there, he knew that Ji Tianxing was holding back the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the others. He was using his own strength to fight the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and dozens of Supreme Being experts through the 9 Bends Heaven River formation. This was undoubtedly dangerous, but it could effectively stall for time. At the same time, it could let the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor know that he was in the Xuanji Cave and was not bluffing. This was the only way for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor to be more determined to attack and not retreat halfway through. Soldiers, listen up. Let's go. Luoho Supreme Being was worried about Ji Tianxing's safety. Therefore, he did not delay any longer. He immediately gave the order and led the 3,000 soldiers towards the Golden Dragon Mountain Range. That was the battlefield that Ji Tianxing had chosen. It was the most advantageous for the 10,000 Demon Alliance to fight there. This was because the seemingly messy piles of stone and wood, together with the palace walls that had just been laid down, would form a great formation. As the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance flew towards the Golden Dragon Mountain Range, Ji Tianxing was fighting fiercely with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor at the entrance of the cave. He stood proudly in the sky by himself. In front of him was the spatial door with a radius of 10,000 feet. Hundreds of millions of formation veins lit up around the scorching white space gate. 5-colored light flowed through them as they flickered. The 9 silvery Milky Way shadows were also surging and roaring like giant dragons. Ji Tianxing stared at the space gate attentively. His mind was connected with the billions of formations. He cast a spell with both of his hands and unleashed countless beams of divine light. He was controlling the great formation of 9 bends of the Heaven River with all his might to stop the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the others from destroying it. Moreover, he used various attacks through the formation to heavily injure and assassinate the God Kings who tried to break through the formation. On the surface, he didn't seem to be in any danger. After all, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the 60 Immortal Kings were outside the cave, separated from him by the great formation of the 9 bends of the Heaven River and the spatial barrier of the Xuanji Cave. But in reality, it was as if there was a layer of water between the two of them. If one looked outside the cave, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the others at the peak of Sky Crane Mountain could tell how dangerous this battle was. The huge moon in the sky was flashing with 5-color divine light. The 9 divine rivers soared in the sky like divine dragons, roaring and surging, releasing light beams and sharp blades that covered the entire sky. Swish, swish, swish. The formation continued to release beams of divine light and sharp blades. It was like a rain of swords that covered the sky. They rained down on the 60 immortal kings. With the deer-horned elder as their leader, the 60 immortal kings were scattered around the moon in a formation. They were using all their strength to break through the formation. Faced with the rain of swords and beams of light, the immortal kings were frightened. However, they didn't dare to dodge, lest they destroy the formation and ruin the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's plan. Therefore, in the past 2 hours, they had endured countless attacks, but didn't give way. Now, many of them were severely injured. They were covered in wounds and dripping with blood. They looked miserable. The 12 upper-level immortal kings were still fine. However, the 48 mid-level immortal kings were in a terrible state. Fortunately, they had joined forces to form a battle formation. Everyone's strength was combined, and they were able to withstand the attacks. Otherwise, many of the mid-level immortal kings would have been killed. Bang, bang, bang. Another wave of swords and beams of divine light came. The immortal kings were terrified. However, they could only grit their teeth and endure. Following a series of muffled explosions, more than a dozen blossoms of blood burst out around Bright Moon, and fragments flew everywhere. 7 severely injured mid-level immortal kings couldn't hold on any longer. They were killed by the rain of swords and beams of light. Their divine bodies were destroyed on the spot. Among them, 4 unlucky. Their godheads were destroyed and they died. The other 3 were luckier. Their godheads survived and they managed to survive. Before the next wave of swords and beams of light arrived, the 3 godheads left the moon in a panic and fled to the peak of Sky Crane Mountain. 7 gaps appeared in the battle formation. The circulating divine power immediately stopped. As the core of the battle formation, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor felt that his divine power was blocked. His casting speed was also affected. Damn it! The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor cursed angrily. He quickly ordered the immortal kings to adjust their positions and repair the gaps in the battle formation. He didn't even look at the 7 immortal kings. Instead, he focused on the great 9 bends of Heaven River Array and continued to cast spells to break it. The deer-horned elder in the battle formation wasn't injured. He was one of the few who wasn't injured. He cast spells in an orderly manner to help the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor break the array. However, he sighed inwardly. If they continue like this and insist on using spells to break the array, the immortal kings will probably suffer heavy casualties. After breaking the array, they will suffer heavy casualties. Their battle prowess will be reduced by half. They might as well give up on breaking the array and attack it forcefully. They can still break it in half a day. However, breaking the array is already at a critical juncture. They will soon achieve a breakthrough. Even if I dissuade the Dragon Emperor now, he won't give up. Once the Dragon Emperor makes a decision, he won't change his mind easily. He is really stubborn. In the eyes of the mysterious paradise's immortal kings, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was a man of his word. This was the might and dominance of a king. However, to the deer-horned elder, he would rather not have such might and dominance. He only wanted to achieve the greatest results with the smallest price. Perhaps this was the fundamental difference between the two. As time passed, wave after wave of divine light blades and beams of light rained down on the crowd, bombarding the 50-odd immortal kings. The immortal kings' injuries worsened. They became weaker and weaker. They were also in a sorry state. Every now and then, 1 or 2 immortal kings would be blasted to pieces. They would flee pathetically with only their godheads left. There were even more miserable cases where their godheads and bodies were destroyed. They died on the spot. As the number of immortal kings decreased, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's speed of breaking the array slowed down. Chapter 38:25. For hours later, the battle finally came to an end. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was gratified by the outcome. After all, he had defeated Ji Tianxing and successfully destroyed the 9 bends of the Heaven River Array. However, The deer-horned elder and the surviving god-kings did not feel gratified at all. Instead, they felt as though a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders. This was because they had suffered heavy casualties. Out of the 60 god-kings, only 39 were left. Out of the remaining 21, 12 had perished. 9 had escaped with only their godheads. Even the 39 survivors were mostly injured, and their faces were filled with exhaustion and weariness. Only the deer-horned elder and a few high-level god-kings were safe and sound. They had preserved their strength. With a loud cracking sound, 3 of the 9 Milky Way phantoms that were entwined with the bright moon shattered on the spot. Amidst the bright moon, a 10-meter-wide gap appeared in the ceiling formation. Everyone worked together to release their divine power to seal the gap. This was to prevent Tianxing from repairing the array and filling the gap. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor shouted as he charged into the gap with the Golden Dragon divine sword in hand. The deer-horned elder and the 30-odd god-kings did not have time to rest. They quickly took out their divine weapons and charged into the gap. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. In the blink of an eye, everyone had charged into the Xuanji Grotto and appeared in the dark sky. The air in the Xuanji Grotto was fresher than the air in the Dragon Realm. Moreover, the divine power was 10 times denser. Everyone was energized, and their fatigue was swept away. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor held his golden sword as he scanned the sky, searching for Long Tian and the myriad demon alliance's experts. In his opinion, the battle earlier was extremely intense. Long Tian and the other god-kings must have worked together to inflict heavy casualties on his subordinates. However, as far as he could see, his surroundings were empty. When he used his divine perception to check, he discovered a white-robed figure 50,000 miles away. He was flying 10,000 miles in an instant towards the depths of the Xuanji Grotto. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was not unfamiliar with that figure. He immediately recognized him. That person was that damned Long Tian. Why is he alone? Are there no other god-kings helping him? Just by relying on his own strength, he was able to control that great formation with such terrifying power? This thought flashed across the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's mind. He could only feel disbelief and shock. However, he did not delve too deeply into this issue. Instead, he hurriedly led the group and flew across the sky, heading towards the depths of the grotto heaven. Swish! The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor stepped across the sky, his body glowing with white light. Every step he took covered a distance of 10,000 miles. His spiritual consciousness locked onto Tianxing and chased after him as fast as he could. The two of them maintained a distance of 50,000 li between them, unable to increase the distance between them. The deer-horned elder and the 30 god-kings were slightly slower. Naturally, they couldn't keep up with the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. However, they would not lose their way as long as they followed the divine power aura left behind by the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. About 100 breaths later, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor chased after Tianxing for over 1,000,000 li. At this point, Tianxing finally stopped in midair and turned to look at the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Even though he was standing alone in the sky, he appeared to be calm, and confident. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor immediately became alert. He guessed that the other party was fearless and most likely had a large number of troops lying in ambush. Therefore, he also slowed down. As he flew towards Tianxing, he released his spiritual consciousness to check the situation in all directions. Fortunately, they were surrounded by towering mountains and steep ridges. There were no divine formations or hidden troops. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was slightly relieved. He stepped across the sky and gradually closed in on Tianxing. He shouted in a chilling tone, "Long Tian, I have been waiting for this day for 2 whole years. No matter how many schemes you have, you are still trapped in the Xuanji Grotto heaven. Only death awaits you. You killed my subordinates, destroyed my divine palace, and even tried to steal my legacy. Tell me, if I don't crush you into pieces, grind your bones, and scatter your ashes, how can I resolve the hatred in my heart?" The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's attitude was tough, and his tone was confident and domineering. However, he was very vigilant. He secretly released his divine power and spiritual consciousness, silently forming domains and seals in the area within a radius of 80,000 li. He had already found out that Long Tian, who was 50 li away, was the real body and not an avatar. No matter what schemes Long Tian had, he only needed to seal this area and kill Long Tian as quickly as possible. Then, victory would be in his grasp. Ji Tianxing placed his left hand behind his back and held the Sword of Burial of Heaven in his right hand. He looked at the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor calmly and said, "Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, you are still afraid. Otherwise, you could have just attacked directly. Why do you need to be so cautious?" The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was not angered by his mockery. He sneered confidently and said, "Even an eagle needs to use all its strength to catch a rabbit. You have always been sinister and cunning. It is only right for me to be cautious." Ji Tianxing sneered disdainfully and said with a disappointed tone, "I have heard that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, one of the 5 great dragon emperors, has always regarded himself as the descendant of the ancestral dragon. I did not expect that you, the Dragon Emperor of the ancestral dragon, would be as timid as a mouse. You do not have the domineering aura of a dragon emperor. Let me tell you the truth. You don't have to search repeatedly. There is only you and me within 100,000 miles. There is no one else." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor knew that Long Tian was the only disciple of the Heavenly Dragon Emperor. It was normal for him to know these secrets. However, Long Tian's confidence made him feel uneasy. "Long Tian, there are no ambushes, divine formations, or traps around here. Could it be that you think you can kill this emperor just because you lured this emperor here? Ha ha ha! You are too naive. What a joke." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Whether I can kill you or not, we will only know after we fight. However, even if I cannot kill you, it is not a problem for me to delay you for a few hours. And in these few hours, you can only watch helplessly as the divine king powerhouses under your command are killed by our alliance one by one. When the time comes, you will be alone and unable to escape death." As he spoke, Ji Tianxing released an invisible divine aura. It covered a radius of 80,000 miles and formed an invisible sealing territory. He locked on to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's divine spirit. His white robe also fluttered as his battle-intent sword. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor suddenly thought of something. His eyes narrowed and his face turned cold. Mr. Liu and the 30 over-god kings are still not here. Could they have been ambushed and fallen into a trap? In his anxiety, he quickly released his divine senses to check the situation behind him. However, even though he was a peak god king, his divine senses could only cover a radius of 90,000 miles. This was the limit. Within 90,000 miles, there was no trace of the deer-horned elder and the rest in the mountains. He suddenly remembered that when he was chasing Long Tian, he had passed by the ruins of the Golden Dragon Mountain. The ruins were 300,000 miles behind him. The originally dilapidated land had been repaired and flattened. Moreover, there were many materials piled up on the land and many palace walls were built. Chapter 38:26. With the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's intelligence and alertness, he immediately realized that the problem lay in the Golden Dragon Mountain range. "Long Tian, you set up traps and ambushes in the Golden Dragon Mountain range to kill the God Kings under my command?" The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor furrowed his brows and glared at Ji Tianxing as he asked in a deep voice. As expected of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, "You reacted so quickly." Ji Tianxing praised him with a smile. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor narrowed his eyes and sneered. "Ha! You are indeed sinister and cunning. You know how cautious I am. If you had set up traps and ambushes here, I would not have fallen for them. Therefore, you set up traps in the Golden Dragon Mountain range to kill Mr. Liu and the God Kings. When you fled earlier, I was in a hurry to kill you. Even though I passed by the Golden Dragon Mountain range, I did not pay much attention to you. Now, even though I know about your scheme, I will not be able to save them. What good plan? You flatter me." Ji Tianxing still had a smile on his face. He didn't look proud at all. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was not upset. He sneered and said, "Long Tian, I have to admit that your array skills are amazing. If you had set up traps in the Golden Dragon Mountain range, they would have suffered heavy casualties. However, you are too naive to think that you could kill Mr. Liu and the 30 over-god kings with just those traps." As the two of them talked, they analyzed each other's schemes and countermeasures. At the same time, they secretly released their divine energy and set up a sealing divine array with a radius of 80,000 miles. Therefore, the two of them were very confident and were not in a hurry to kill. Ji Tianxing smiled and said, "Those 30 over people are all intermediate and high god kings. There is even a 9th heaven realm expert among them. He should be the Mr. Liu you mentioned. The arrays that I set up are not enough to kill them. I can only cause them some casualties. However, I purposely released the news of the Divine Palace to force you to attack the mysterious Grotto Heaven. How could I not have prepared an ambush?" The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor frowned and said in a low voice, "Although you have eliminated a few of my spies in the Demon City, I still know the situation in the Demon City. Luo Ho, the Chief of Internal Affairs, and the Left and Right Protectors are all in Myriad Demon City. They didn't follow you to the Xuanji Grotto. Even if you set up an ambush in the Golden Dragon Mountain range, it's only a few elders of the Myriad Demon League. Just relying on that meager number of people and wanting to kill over 30 divine kings? In your dreams." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked with a playful smile, "So you're sure that the Alliance Master and the Divine King experts are still guarding the Myriad Demon City and can't send reinforcements?" "Isn't that the case?" the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor asked. However, he suddenly guessed something in the next moment. His pupils constricted and his expression changed drastically. Did you build a teleportation divine formation that connected the mystical grotto to the Demon City?" Suddenly guessing this possibility, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's heart skipped a beat. His chest was filled with anger and shock. Ji Tianxing smiled and clapped his hands. As expected of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, your intelligence and alertness are admirable. It's a pity that you found out a little too late. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor shook his head. His expression was ugly. He gritted his teeth and growled. "How is this possible? The mystical grotto and the Demon City are separated by more than 20 domains. They're more than 100 million miles apart. Moreover, the spatial barrier of the mystical grotto is much stronger than the other grotto heavens. How could you build a teleportation divine formation to connect the two places? Even I, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, have spent hundreds of years researching it, but failed to do so." Many years ago, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had wanted to build a teleportation divine formation to connect the mystical grotto to the 4 directions of the continent. If his research was successful, he would be able to travel hundreds of millions of miles in an instant and easily patrol the Star Source continent. In that case, his control over the Star Source continent would reach the pinnacle. However, he had spent countless time and effort, but it had all ended in failure. Even the teleportation divine formation that he had personally built could only span tens of millions of miles across a single domain. 100 million miles was the limit of a teleportation divine formation. Almost no one had been able to break through it. Therefore, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had not thought of this and did not guard against Ji Tianxing's ability to connect the mystical grotto and the Demon City. Seeing the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's shocked and incredulous expression, Ji Tianxing revealed a smug smile. "Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, do you think that my trump card to trump cards are the various schemes and schemes? Of course not. This king's greatest reliance is actually his attainments in the Tao of formations and all sorts of divine abilities. Didn't you just say that my array Tao attainments are shocking and admirable? The limit that you think is unsurpassable, I have already broken through it. More than 1,000 years ago, when Qin Shin had dominated the divine world, he had built several super teleportation divine formations. At that time, he had already broken through the limit of 100 million miles. Ji Tianxing had only used a large amount of divine power and sacrificed hundreds of king-grade divine artifacts to build the super teleportation divine formation. After all, he had already accumulated hundreds of trillions of wealth and resources in his interspatial ring. Even if he had to sacrifice hundreds of King Grey divine artifacts, he would not feel the pinch. Very good. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor finally understood Ji Tianxing's plan. He was so angry that his face turned green and twisted. Long Tian, no matter how careful I was, I still underestimated you. You actually have such a mystique. I did not lose unjustly. However, you are right about one thing. If you want to win, you don't have to rely on schemes and schemes. You have to rely on true power. As he spoke, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's body shone with golden light. The golden robe disappeared and was replaced by a set of dark golden armor. A simple and exquisite dragon-scale armor covered his entire body. His body expanded to 10,000 feet tall, and 6 wings appeared on his back. Golden flames and battle intent surged from his body, making him look extremely domineering. Even if you've used up all your tricks and come up with all your tricks, what's the use? In the end, you will die under my sword. Prepare to die. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor roared. He held the Golden Dragon Divine Sword with both hands and slashed toward Ji Tianxing. At the same time, the sealing divine formation that the two of them had secretly set up finally revealed its true form. Swoosh! Swoosh! 2 huge light barriers with a radius of 80,000 miles flashed with 5-color divine light. They quickly condensed and were about to take shape. These 2 sealing divine formations, which were almost identical, canceled each other out and eroded each other. At the same time, they were also growing rapidly. 2 mighty divine auras of heaven and earth came crashing down and enveloped each other. Seeing the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's domineering sword slash toward him, Ji Tianxing did not want to be outdone. He roared and used his ultimate skill. Heavenly Dragon Tyrant Body. This was the Heavenly Dragon ultimate skill that his master, the Heavenly Dragon Emperor, had taught him. Ji Tianxing also transformed into a 10,000 feet tall golden armored giant. He held the pitch-black sword of Burial of Heaven with both hands and slashed toward the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor fearlessly. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 3827. Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor were engaged in an intense battle within the 2 sealing formations that spanned 80,000 miles. Both of them unleashed their best sword skills and unleashed hundreds of nomological laws and divine powers as they flashed around in the sky. Dazzling 5-color divine lights clashed in the sky, and countless divine light shards rained down like rain. Hundreds of nomological laws and divine powers transformed into various images and images that filled the sealing formations. The entire area within 80,000 miles was in a state of chaos. The nomological laws and illusions included stars, silver galaxies, collapsing mountains and rivers, the rotation of the sun, moon, and stars, the eruption of heavenly winds and earthly fires, life and death, etc. The shockwaves from their intense battle destroyed tens of thousands of miles of land and tore apart the sky. Both of them had only exchanged over 30 moves before the heavens and earth were shattered and a huge hole was blasted open in the Xuanji Utopia. The void storm suddenly surged, and all kinds of pitch-black turbulence rushed into the Xuanji Grotto like seawater flowing backwards. Fortunately, the 2 sealing arrays blocked the destructive void storm and turbulence, so it didn't spread to other places. Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor did not want to destroy the Xuanji Utopia. Hence, they could only shift the battlefield and fight in the void. Experts at their level were no longer suitable to fight in the Dragon Realm. They could easily shatter the spatial barriers, destroy the heavens and earth, and create a huge disaster. Once the disaster affected too many innocent living beings, it would be a sin of killing and karma. As long as one had respect for the heavenly Tao, it was impossible not to fear karma. Hence, a battle between peak supreme god kings would usually take place in the void. Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor were on par with each other in terms of strength. Both of them wielded king-class, upper-grade, divine swords. Ji Tianxing's sword skills were even more powerful and could be said to have reached the pinnacle. However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's strength was even more profound. He had cultivated for over 20,000 years, and it was terrifying. Hence, the battle between the two of them could not be decided in a short period of time. Ji Tianxing was not in a hurry. He only needed to delay the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Naturally, God King Rahu and the soldiers of the Myriad Demon Alliance would kill Mr. Liu and the 30 or so God Kings. However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor would not allow this to happen. He wanted to kill Ji Tianxing and save Mr. Liu and the others. Before leaving the Xuanji Grotto and entering the void, he used all his strength to break through the sealing formation and open the world within the Golden Dragon Divine Sword. Swoosh! Swish! Instantly, more than 40 low-level divine kings and 3,000 Sir God experts poured down like a five-colored flood, rushing out of the grand sealing formation. They had already received the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's orders and rushed to the Golden Dragon Mountain Range to assist Mr. Liu and the others. Ji Tianxing's reaction was very fast. When he realized that the situation was not good, he immediately repaired the gap in the seal and charged over with his sword. However, he had only intercepted over 300 God Monarchs and killed 6 God Kings. The others had already escaped from the sealing formation and were rushing to the ruins of the Golden Dragon Mountain as fast as they could. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor finally heaved a sigh of relief when he saw more than 2,000 people flying across the sky and disappearing into the horizon. As long as Mr. Liu and the others can hold on for a while longer, the 2,000 soldiers will arrive and resolve the crisis. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had sent people to investigate the strength of the Myriad Demon Alliance for a long time. He could roughly guess that even if the Myriad Demon Alliance had mobilized all their forces, they would only be able to gather 3,000 soldiers. The 2,000 soldiers under his command were fewer than the Myriad Demon Alliance. However, he had more God Kings under his command. He would definitely be able to defeat the Myriad Demon Alliance. Just as the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor felt relieved and was thinking to himself, the 300 God Monarchs who had been intercepted and trapped in the sealing formation were being slaughtered by Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing controlled the sealing formation and released a terrifying divine aura to suppress the God Monarchs. The many high-level God Monarchs felt as though they were stuck in a quagmire and could not move. All of them were struggling with their backs hunched, and their faces were filled with pain. When Ji Tianxing pointed his sword at the sky, thousands of starry giant swords rained down from the sky and drowned the God Monarchs. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was shocked and quickly tried to defend himself. However, it was already too late. The 300 God Monarchs could not even hold on for a few breaths under the bombardment of the starry giant swords. They were all smashed into pieces. Snowflakes danced in the sky amidst the starry giant swords. After a while, when the starry giant swords and the starry giant swords dissipated, the 300 God Monarchs also disappeared without a trace. Only fragments of godheads and bone fragments were left. They fell from the sky and scattered on the ground. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was furious that he had not been able to stop Ji Tianxing in time. He roared and charged over with his sword. As for the death of the 300 God Monarchs, it did not cause any ripples in his heart. After all, they were the elites of the various forces and not the Golden Dragon Guards of the Xuanji Grotto. Of course, even if the 300 Golden Dragon Guards had been killed, he would not be too concerned. Hence, only Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor were left on the battlefield. The two of them left the Xuanji Grotto and charged into the vast void one after the other. They started an even more intense battle. At the same time, an even more intense battle was taking place at the Golden Dragon Mountain ruins. After Luoho's Supreme Being and the 3,000 soldiers arrived at the Xuanji Grotto through the super teleportation formation, they followed the plan and rushed to the Golden Dragon Mountain ruins. Many stones, wood, and half of a palace wall were piled up on the flattened ruins. It looked like they had stopped halfway, but in reality, it was to conceal the divine formation underground. God King Rahu and the 3,000-plus soldiers quickly activated the deity array and hid underground. Before long, Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor flew over the Golden Dragon Mountain ruins and rushed to the depths of the grotto. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was only focused on chasing after Ji Tianxing and did not check the Golden Dragon Mountain ruins carefully. Luoho's Supreme Being and the 3,000 soldiers relied on the cover of the divine formation and did not expose themselves. After waiting for a while, they saw more than 30 godly king experts in a sorry state chasing after them with murderous intent. Hence, when those godly kings flew over the Golden Dragon Mountain ruins, Luoho's Supreme Being and the 3,000 soldiers attacked decisively. More than 10 divine formations were activated instantly and connected together to form a super formation that spanned 90,000 miles. The five-colored light barrier that covered the sky sealed off the Golden Dragon Mountain ruins. Mr. Lu and the 30 godly king experts were naturally trapped within the formation. Everyone realized that they had fallen into an ambush and immediately formed a battle formation to defend against the enemy. The 3,000 soldiers from the Myriad Demon Alliance took up 6 different positions and formed an even larger battle formation to surround and attack them. These soldiers had a clear division of labor and coordinated well. Under the command of the elders, hall masters, and branch leaders, they attacked in an orderly manner. As soon as the two sides clashed, the 30 godly king experts were attacked fiercely. They were beaten back by the 3,000 soldiers and suffered heavy injuries. Immediately after, Luoho's Supreme Being, the left and right protectors, and a few high-level godly kings attacked, and quickly killed a few mid-level godly kings. Mr. Lu and the rest were in a desperate situation and could not turn the tables. Chapter 38:28. Mr. Lu and the other 30 godly kings were at least at the 5th level of the godly king realm. Each of them could take on 100 enemies by themselves. They had great abilities and power. If there were only 3,000 godly monarchs, they could set up a formation to deal with them. Even if all 3,000 of them died, it would be impossible to kill all 30 godly kings, especially Mr. Lu and the 11 high-level godly kings. They had a high chance of surviving. In the end, the most likely outcome would be that more than 20 middle-level divine kings would die in battle and only 12 high-level divine kings would survive. As for more than 3,000 Sir Gods, they would all be killed. However, the situation was different now. The Myriad Demon Alliance not only had 3,000 godly monarchs, they also had 50 godly kings, even if half of the 50 godly kings were low-level godly kings. However, they had 11 high-level godly kings and a peak godly king like Alliance Master Luoho. Therefore, Mr. Lu and the others would definitely lose this battle. The two sides had only fought for 100 breaths of time, but more than 10 godly kings from Xuanji Grotto Heaven were heavily injured. 9 of them were killed on the spot. Mr. Lu and the remaining 20 godly kings were in an even more perilous situation. They were in imminent danger. Fortunately, Mr. Lu and the 11 high-level godly kings were calmer and more experienced. As the main force, they worked together to set up a defensive formation to block the attacks of the Myriad Demon Alliance. Mr. Lu did not forget to calm everyone down as he helped reduce the pressure on the mid-level godly kings. Everyone, don't panic. Although the Myriad Demon Alliance is treacherous and set up a trap to ambush us, their elites are all here. His Majesty, the Dragon Emperor, will soon find out that we've been ambushed. At that time, the Dragon Emperor will definitely kill Long Tian and come to save us. Moreover, the Dragon Emperor has 3,000 soldiers and dozens of godly kings with him. Even if the Dragon Emperor cannot kill Long Tian, he will send his soldiers to save us. As long as we hold on until the reinforcements arrive, we can turn the tables and kill all the bastards from the Myriad Demon Alliance. Originally, the godly kings were in a desperate situation. Seeing many of their companions being killed, they were panicking and terrified. Hearing Master Lu's words, everyone calmed down and became much calmer. If Mr. Lu had ordered everyone to obey or said something vague like, "We will win," it would not have had such an effect. However, he didn't hide anything from everyone. With just a few words, he analyzed the situation and gave a definite answer. Only then did everyone believe him and truly feel at ease. After everyone steadied themselves, under the leadership of Master Lu, they cast spells in an orderly manner to resist the siege of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. However, the casualties were still increasing. Before long, another 2 God Kings were killed on the spot. However, the rate of casualties had been reduced by several times, and everyone was confident that they could hold on until reinforcements arrived. Swish, swish, swish. Whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Tens of thousands of divine spell shadows and blade radiance rained down on Master Lu and the others like a torrential downpour. The area within tens of thousands of miles was filled with divine light and shadows. The 5-color divine light was especially dazzling, and the entire area was also in chaos. Over 3,000 divine Lord Realm Masters had calm and collected expressions as they released their divine arts in an orderly fashion. The current situation made everyone feel that victory was within their grasp. They were even more impressed with the young Alliance Master strategy. However, the left and right protectors and a few elders couldn't kill a single mid-level God King, much less injure Master Lu and the others. They started to panic and hurriedly sent voice transmissions to Luoho for help. Alliance Master, they have completely given up on counterattacking. They're going all out to defend. We can't break through for now. The weaker and inexperienced God Kings have all been killed by us. The 20 or so people who are still alive were all strong and determined people. It will be difficult for us to make any progress in a short period of time. Lord Alliance Master, the young Alliance Master, is delaying the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, but the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor will definitely realize that he has fallen into a trap. He will send reinforcements soon. We have to kill these God Kings as soon as possible. Luoho stood high in the sky and cast spells to attack the defensive light shield of the God Kings. At the same time, he stared at Master Lu, looking for flaws and opportunities to exploit. Hearing the voice transmissions from the left and right protectors and a few elders, his frown deepened as he started to panic. He knew the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's strength and methods better than anyone else. Therefore, he was even more worried about Long Tion's safety. Of course, he knew that he had to finish off these God Kings as soon as possible before going to reinforce Long Tion. However, Master Lu and the 20 or so surviving God Kings had made up their minds not to counterattack. They were going all out to defend because they wanted to stall for time and wait for reinforcements to arrive. At this moment, they were like tortoises that had retreated into their shells. It was difficult to attack them. Luoho weighed the pros and cons and decided to take a risk and use an ultimate mystique just to break through the defensive light shield of the God Kings. Devouring Heaven. Annihilation. Luoho roared as he opened his arms and looked up at the sky. His body emitted a blinding golden light. Then, like a golden whirlpool, he madly absorbed the divine power of heaven and earth in a radius of 90,000 miles. He condensed a huge blade of light high in the sky. The area within 90,000 miles was filled with the violent divine power released by thousands of people. Endless divine arts rippled. Almost no one dared to absorb or devour such a chaotic and heterogeneous divine power. Not to mention devouring such chaotic divine power. Once it came into contact with one's own power, one would be disrupted. In the best-case scenario, one's divine Tao foundation would be damaged. In the worst-case scenario, one's divine power would become chaotic and one would explode on the spot. However, Luoho God King had used a mystique and a very dangerous method to borrow the divine power of thousands of different attributes for himself. This was undoubtedly a challenge. Boundless divine power surged in from all directions and gathered together in a frenzy. The huge blade hanging high in the sky became thicker and thicker. It also became brighter and more dazzling. However, the pressure and danger that Luoho God King was under also multiplied. His face turned pale and his body started to tremble. Cold sweat broke out all over his body. When the 10,000 jong tall, 5-color blade became solid and its power increased to the maximum, he reached the most dangerous and critical juncture. His divine power started to boil, and his consciousness became blurry. His divine Tao foundation shook violently and could shatter at any time. Luo God King did not dare to waste any time. With a furious roar, he immediately controlled the 10,000 Zhongtao blade to cleave down at the divine light shield. Before the huge blade arrived, its suppressive divine might had already made Master Lu and the 20-odd God Kings feel uneasy. However, they could not dodge and still needed to maintain the battle formation. They could only watch as the blade of divine light cleaved down. Kaboom! With a loud and clear sound, the huge blade shattered the barrier of divine light, causing fragments of divine light to scatter all over the sky. There were 5 unlucky middle-level divine kings who were struck by the giant blades of divine light on the spot. They were directly smashed into pieces and turned into ashes. The other 22 god kings were also affected, and their formation was disrupted.